Chapter 1044. The huge disc flickered with an incomparably moving light. The dazzling light made the demon unable to look directly at it. Her consciousness was slightly shocked. She remembered that she only had the devouring array points, and the rule array points were obtained by her in the modern world. No. How did she know that in the past, she didn't have the rule array points? At that time, in addition to her lover being Song Yanqing, she also had her own identity, an array master. The strongest array master had to bear the greatest responsibility. She didn't care about the common people, but respected life. She could live, but she couldn't see a world without traces of life. If she just sat back and watched all of this disappear, Song Yanqing's actions would be unreasonable. Song Yanqing opened the boundary and disappeared. He paid a price that Xiao Jin didn't dare to imagine to do one thing. He went to the Rakshasa world. Xiao Jin didn't know why, but she knew that she had to wait for a time to save him. Demons had already covered the earth, and they were very fast. In their eyes, humans were just a group of defenseless food. Although many demons were instantly vaporized when they broke through the boundary, more demons continued to come, devouring humans, transforming them into life force, and successfully existing here. If this continued, no one would be able to stop their slaughter. Mo Feiwan only thought that he had a huge amount of power, but he didn't think that the Rakshasa world wanted everyone's lives, wanted this world. If everyone died, would the demons let him go? Even if humans were left behind, they would still be treated as slaves. How can I stop all of this? She asked calmly, and the rule array points gave a clear price this time. Use your own life and the world's civilization as the price. In exchange for the continuation of life, everything will start over, and new seeds will continue to sprout. She nodded and no longer hesitated. The huge disc began to spin. She transmitted the power of the rule into the minds of all the spiritual psyche masters. Mo Feihuan's criticism couldn't resist Xiao Jin's message. She clearly stated what price they had to pay to stop the Rakshasa world. Was it the life of a generation, or the destruction of the entire world? Every spiritual psyche master had a moment of hesitation in their hearts, but soon, they all expressed their affirmation. Life had to continue, and the Rakshasa world had to be stopped. Even if he had to give up his life, he would not hesitate. The disc spun faster and faster, and as it moved, it grew bigger and bigger, almost covering the entire sky. Time was an existence that could travel back and forth at will. Space could cross between two worlds, and devour could devour everything. Only the rules could change everything. Only the rules could make the Rakshasa realm disappear completely. Mo Feiwan heard it as well. His face quickly stiffened. If that was the case, then what was the point of his mission? Everything he had done would be erased by the rules. He knew very well that once he succeeded, the rules would not care about this. As a spiritual reader, he was protected by the rules. However, he was a spiritual reader, so he could not survive. In order to continue all of this, the price to pay was the lives of all the spiritual readers. He never would have thought that Xiao Jin actually had law array points in his hands. She had been hiding it all along. At the thought of this, his face contorted. Almost instantly, he set up a formation and randomly assigned his life to an ordinary person. Even if he had to pay a price that he did not want to pay, he had to survive. Only by surviving would there be hope. Chapter 1045. Jean, Mo Fei Jean, who was spitting out blood, saw that the figure on the tower had been completely enveloped by the light. She was so great, yet so small. In front of the rules, the world was like dust. Everything seemed to be blurring quickly. Xiao Jin knew that it was far from enough. Far from enough. She finally knew why Song Yanqing wanted to enter the Rakshasa world. The Rakshasa world itself was a catalyst. They could also be absorbed by the rules because they would not disappear. The Rakshasa world would always exist. This was another space that the rules could not control. But it could wipe out all existences in this area and close the border. The demons also thought of this. They instantly scattered and fled. Countless demons rushed towards Qiao Jin, making loud hoarse sounds. They wanted to kill Qiao Jin, they wanted her to die. As long as she died, the plan would not succeed. The rules were preparing. Everything in the world needed to evolve. What would it be like when the Rakshasa world took over the human world? What would it be like after they were destroyed? Countless pieces of information needed to be transformed. The energy needed during this period was huge. Someone had to be sacrificed. For the sake of a possible continuation of life, everyone had to be sacrificed. Because they would definitely die. But they knew that as long as the human race could continue, as long as they could live, as long as they were alive, there was hope. They had the same expectations as Mo Feihuan, but they were thinking about something completely different. The disc spun faster and faster. The light was so strong that it could brighten the entire world. Everyone saw the huge disc in the sky. A huge butterfly rushed out of Qiao Jin's body and covered the disc. She could feel her life force rapidly draining away. A huge force attacked her. She saw Mo Feihuan staring at her with hatred. She had paid a huge price. Even Mo Feihuan would suffer. He only wanted Qiao Jin to die now. Her power had been completely absorbed by the rules and was now in the transformation stage. She could not move, but she frowned and her eyes were cold. Even though she was about to die, she didn't show any signs of depression. She was still high and mighty, looking coldly at Mo Feihuan. In her eyes, he was just an ant. Even if Mo Feihuan had not been involved in everything that had happened today, Song Yanqing had already seen that there was no hope. However, such despicable people deserved to die. Looking at Qiao Jin in such a state, Mo Feihuan's hatred grew even more. Just as he was about to attack again, a huge power of the rules came attacking. It was a kind of overwhelming power that could not be resisted at all. It showed how insignificant their so-called powerful array masters were. It was seizing everyone's life force and the price they had to pay for it. Mo Feihuan's eyelids twitched, and he quickly fled. The moment the disc stopped spinning, there was a crack as if something was stuck. The demon in the sky knew that he was about to die. He roared unwillingly and rushed toward Qiao Jin. At the moment when it was about to disappear, its huge claws left a scar on Qiao Jin's body. Blood gushed out from her waist, and all her power was quickly sucked away. The sealing stone around her suppressed her power, and she couldn't use it. She fell to the side of the stage, and couldn't maintain her body. She fell down from the 100-meter-high stage. I can only die in such an undignified way, she thought. The powerful array master who used to be high and mighty was now like the most fragile butterfly. She fell from the stage. The 100-meter distance was covered in an instant. Paw! His body was smashed into pieces. Streams of blood splattered on Mo Feijin's face. It was her blood. It was warm and red. Chapter 1046. Jin. Mo Feijin had not disappeared. He looked at the corpse in front of him in disbelief. It was completely unrecognizable. It was no longer the Qiao Jin of his dreams. It was also no longer the lively array master he had just seen. His hands and feet were almost cold. He trembled as he crawled towards Qiao Jin's corpse. Even if it was just a corpse that was unrecognizable. He did not know why such a thing had happened. He also did not know why a proper succession ceremony had become like this. Tears welled up in his eyes. He was supposed to be the high and mighty king of the Shanghe kingdom. Now, he had become a thing of the past. The wind was very strong. There seemed to be something swimming around. It seemed like someone was whispering. The voice was vast and indistinct. It was like the singing of a god. It faintly hid a sorrowful cry for humans. He approached the broken limbs on the ground with tears. He felt as if he could not even speak. He wailed silently, but not a single sound came out of his throat. The purple butterfly in the sky suddenly let out a loud cry. It shook its wings and closed them. It swooped down from the sky. The huge purple butterfly turned into the most brilliant color in the world. It was as if the invisible light spots had turned solid. Bit by bit, it surged into the blood on the ground. The disc stopped in midair. It did not move. Only the act of taking the price slowed down. Mo Fei Jin did not have time to disappear. He saw the corpses in his arms slowly gather into a complete corpse. He was shocked and surprised, but also a little happy. Actually, he did not know that Xiao Jin's consciousness had seen all of this clearly. She frowned. She was already dead. She had paid the price. In the end, she had revived and set up the array. She was sure that the array was set up by herself. But she was clearly dead here. Because of the Forbidden Stone, she did not have the chance to set up the array. Mo Fei Jin held her corpse and shouted over and over again, "Jin, Jin." Her body had recovered through the devouring process and was gradually turning into a complete corpse. Her expression was lively, her cheeks were still rosy, but she looked like she was asleep. Mo Fei Jin hugged her body, which had already lost its warmth, and his tears continued to flow. Devouring could repair her body, but it couldn't save her life. The law stopped in front of Mo Fei Jin. It was still in the shape of a huge disc, but a line of words gradually appeared on the disc. You can pay a price that complies with the rules. Mo Fei could not help but be stunned. The price of complying with the rules. Although he was not an array master, he had long heard of the terror of the 4 major array points. There was a price to pay for everything. Xiao Jin had already sacrificed the lives of all the spiritual readers. This world was the price of being seized by the rules, including him. What other price could he pay to be seized by the rules? He didn't know what he was thinking, but he suddenly remembered what Xiao Jin had said. One day, your ability will shine brightly as well. I'm sorry, I couldn't do it. He hugged Xiao Jin's corpse and cried. He closed his eyes and held Xiao Jin's corpse in his arms. What price could he pay to revive Xiao Jin? Something, like an invisible force, was slowly approaching Xiao Jin. Mo Fei Jin looked at the world in front of him that was already falling apart. He seemed to hear something. Chapter 1047. It's not enough, she will lose her memories. As long as you're willing to give up everything you have, are you willing? Mo Fei Jin heard a voice that seemed to come from the horizon. In that instant, he thought of someone. Song Shi, he muttered to himself, and his eyes shone with the brightest light. Yes, Song Shi. Song Shi wouldn't just watch as Jin died. He loved Jin more than anyone else. How could he bear to let Jin die? It was just that the price wasn't enough. He could feel Song Shi's strong determination. A spirit master of speech could pay a huge price to change fate. Song Shi must have done something like this. How could he let Xiao Jin die? But it wasn't enough. Song Shi had his own thoughts. He must know something. He must have seen something. Mo Fei Jin seemed to realize something. His tears stopped. He hugged Xiao Jin's corpse and murmured, I'm willing. I'll give up my eternal life as the price. If I have a spirit, I'll give up my spirit. I'll give up everything. I won't regret it. As long as you wake up, you'll be revived. You'll definitely be revived. He used his ability. He had already paid a huge price to curse Mo Fei Wan. Now, he only had a sliver of strength left. He hugged Xiao Jin's corpse and spat out mouthfuls of blood. He could feel his life force leaving his body, as if he was losing something forever. Xiao Shi always said that people didn't have a second life. Since that was the case, what harm was there in giving up everything? His only ability was prophecy. Prophecies could succeed or fail. The only difference was the price he had to pay. Xiao Jin's consciousness stared at Mo Fei Jin. Her eyes were filled with shock. This was clearly wrong. Even if Mo Fei Jin used his ability and used his eternal life as the price, it wouldn't be enough to compensate for Xiao Jin's life. He had already been included in the price of the laws. He didn't have this ability. Then, she felt her body move. His fingertips moved slightly. Mo Fei Jin seemed to have sensed it. His eyes flashed with ecstasy. However, at this moment, the rules no longer showed any mercy. They had to pay the price they deserved in order to change everything. Mo Fei Jin's life force was instantly seized by the laws. He transformed into a ray of light, but before he disappeared, he looked at Xiao Jin with a gratified look in his eyes. When her body fell to the ground, she felt a sharp pain. When Xiao Jin got up, the entire square was dead silent. The Rakshasa realm demon from before had already disappeared, and there was still the sound of someone screaming. The rules would seize some, but there would also be some left behind. These people were the seeds of the future. But they will lose their memories. The existence of the four great kingdoms would eventually disappear from history. This was at the cost of civilization. Xiao Shi, Furuo's scream came from the square. She could only see Xiao Jin running towards her, her eyes filled with anxiety. Furuo was just an ordinary person. Song Shi left something for me, Xiao Shi. When she ran towards Xiao Jin, she was holding something in her hand. But Xiao Jin could feel her life force rapidly draining away. She still had to die. She was the one who changed the laws. How could she not die? She couldn't change her fate. But before she died, she still couldn't accept it. She didn't know what price she had to pay. She laid down a heaven-defying resurrection array. Chapter 1048. The originally calm sky was once again filled with turbulence. A bolt of lightning struck down from the sky, scaring Furuo so much that she didn't dare to approach. Xiao Jin vaguely saw something in the process of death. She said to Furuo, "Don't come over." Using the last of his strength, he threw something from his hand. "Do as he says." Furuo was stunned. She took the thing that Xiao Jin threw over. It was a brocade pouch. Xiao Jin shouted to her, "Go to the junction." If she could survive, the formation she set up would be of great use. She couldn't die like this. Song Yanqing definitely didn't go to the Rakshasa world to let her die. This matter wasn't over yet. When she revived, she would start again. She had a very strong obsession in her body. That obsession was enough to protect her for the time being, and she had to pay a huge price. That was Song Yanqing's obsession. He used his own ability to use the opportunity on himself. The price he paid could be imagined. That was the first time she shed a tear. Her cheeks were a little moist. She thought of all the people who disappeared. She thought of Song Yanqing and Mo Fei Jin. She touched her eyes, and an inexplicable power surged in her body. The disc that represented the rules rose into the air again. It felt the needle technique around Xiao Jin surging. It stood in mid-air, and this time, only one word appeared on the huge disc. Sigh. It was also conscious. It knew what Xiao Jin wanted to do. It was just a rule, and it had to be done according to the rules. Even the formation point itself couldn't do as it pleased. After absorbing what it should absorb, this world would be completely changed. Humans would disappear and change greatly. The remaining people would lose all their memories and start everything again. Spiritual readers wouldn't completely disappear, and they wouldn't disappear either. What disappeared was only this period of history. No one could know what the history of 10,000 years ago was, or what the 4 great ancient countries were like. She recalled the price she had paid for all of this. She had used Song Yanqing's obsession to resurrect herself, but the price she had to pay was more than just a backlash. What she had lost was her memories, the memories of everything that had happened. When she came back to life, it would be the beginning of everything. The only thing he didn't expect was to meet Song Yanqing again. Song Yanqing had gone to the Rakshasa world. There would not be a second him in this world. How did he come back? The surrounding scenery was already starting to blur. The heaven-defying resurrection array was starting to take effect, almost distorting the surrounding space. Xiao Jin saw the devouring array point enter her body. From the beginning to the end, only the devouring array point followed her. She did not understand why Devour had chosen to follow her. She was just an array master. To Devour, she was just a vessel. Why would Devour spend so much effort to repair a container? She tapped her forehead with the tip of her finger before everything blurred. She heard a sigh from the river of time. Who doesn't yearn for the beauty of the world? She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she had already appeared in the underground palace. Around her were still piles of white bones. It was still the majestic but dilapidated underground palace. In front of her was an empty throne. Her palm was warm. It was the warmth of someone holding her. She turned her eyes. It was Song Yanqing's beautiful side profile. When she opened her eyes, he also opened his eyes. Chapter 1049. They met again. This time, she was very sure that she had returned. She had already left the time matrix point. Jean, he paused. His eyes were still gentle, and his Adam's apple moved up and down. In the end, he sighed and hugged Xiao Jin in his arms. He said, "It's good that you're okay." It was as if he was afraid of something. He saw some blurry things, as if he saw the past. He was sure that the man in his memory was himself. However, what he saw caused him to feel heartache. He didn't know if it hurt to fall from such a high place. The heart-wrenching past he had experienced inside was far less painful than the moment Xiao Jin fell from the altar. He saw the most terrifying scene in the world. Fortunately, she was still alive and came to this world alive. Xiao Jin also hugged his waist. She felt something and said in a low voice, "I'm fine." She recalled everything that she had just experienced. But there was still something that didn't match. She was sure that it was real. The time matrix point could put her in a fake world, but it couldn't cause problems with her consciousness. So, the past was real. But what was going on with Mo Jiang and the others? The 9 array points had never appeared in this place before. She thought of Mo Fei Jin, who sacrificed himself for her. In addition to sighing and a trace of sorrow in her heart, there was also an indescribable sadness. Mo Fei Huan and the Rakshasa world cooperated to cause all this. He actually survived until now. Obviously, he had reached an unspeakable deal with the Rakshasa world. He also paid a price to survive. Xiao Jin looked behind her. In the empty palace, Yu and Mo Jiang had already left. Obviously, they had stayed in the time matrix point for too long. She said in a low voice, "What did you see inside?" Song Yanqing touched her head. "I'll tell you when we get back." In general, the things he saw were not beautiful. Especially most of them were related to the Rakshasa world. It was a ferocious and dark world. Most of the time, he could even feel the hostility in his heart. And there was one more thing. In the past, he and Xiao Jin had been very intimate. They had done very intimate things. Now that he saw such a beautiful and pure Xiao Jin, he felt a little complicated. Everything that had happened in the array point was still vivid in his mind. It was as if he had experienced it all over again. He really could not ignore the feelings of certain things. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. Xiao Jin nodded. She turned around to take a look. The empty throne was now very quiet, as if there was nothing there at all. This underground city had nothing to do with their previous world. It should be a later kingdom. After all, time points could appear anywhere. Song Yanqing asked her, "Did you get what you wanted?" Xiao Jin shook his head. "There's a high probability that there isn't one. Furthermore, we've even thrown something in." When she came out, she instantly felt that the time reversal point had disappeared. This was originally a branch of time, something that could recall the past. In the end, when she was trapped in the array point, the time matrix point was actually assimilated. Now that she thought about it, Xiao Jin was not trapped inside. It was very likely that it had something to do with this array point. Time reversal. Song Yanqing guessed correctly. Xiao Jin nodded. Song Yanqing also nodded. "I guess so too." He and Xiao Jin had similar experiences, so he might have seen what she saw. He also had some guesses. Chapter 1050. They were about to leave this place. However, before they left, Xiao Jin asked the time matrix point a question. "Where is the space matrix point?" She could communicate with the time matrix point for a short while. After all, she had just come out of the time matrix point. She wanted to go to the Rakshasa world to save Song Yanqing. She needed the space matrix point. Otherwise, she could not pass at all. The time matrix point only replied, "You will never find the space matrix point. You can treat it as if it does not exist." Other than that, there was no other information. Xiao Jin knew that it would not answer. It was the time matrix point. It could not be subdued. Since it said that the space matrix point could not be found, it indirectly proved that the space matrix point was complicated. It could cross space. Naturally, it could go to any place. It might not even be in this world. This time, Xiao Jin knew the path through the time matrix point. It could be said that she solved the mystery of her resurrection. Her resurrection was very complicated. After paying such a huge price, she no longer had the ability to resurrect. She was resurrected twice. Once because of Mo Fei Jin, and once because of Song Yanqing. And the strange Devourer. She summoned Devourer to no avail. Devourer never communicated with her. Some things were still unanswered. Looking at the time matrix point, it did not seem like it would tell her anything. She pursed her lips. She felt that what happened after this should be related to Song Yanqing. However, she still needed to find out what the 9 array points would eventually converge into. Thinking of Mo Fei Jin, Xiao Jin's eyes turned ruthless. She could conclude that Mo Huan was most likely Mo Fei Huan. Their names were so similar. She could not find anyone else. There would not be a second one. Back then, he did not do enough. However, he was the main culprit. From the beginning of his existence, he had been competing with Xiao Jin. Both of them were powerful array masters back then. Only Xiao Jin had one of the 4 major matrix points, Devour. Now that she thought about it, there were rules. She could be recognized by the matrix point because she was stronger than Mo Feiwan. Mo Feiwan, who had the matrix point, was no match for her. His aim had always been Xiao Jin's position. It was a pity that no one knew what Mo Feiwan had done after that. The rules had originally wanted to take the lives of all spiritual readers, so there was no reason for Mo Feiwan to survive. What exactly did he get from the Rakshasa realm that allowed him to escape the rules and save his life? With this question in mind, Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing returned to the surface together. Song Yanqing's phone had long been turned off. They had no idea how long they had been underwater. They would only know when they went up. When Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing floated to the surface of the sea together, the power of modern technology was monitoring the sea below. In the first few tens of thousands of meters, they definitely wouldn't notice anything. But at this time, a certain country received an unknown surveillance message. Abnormal activity data detected under the ocean within Iceland. Someone activated the submarine's radar in surprise and finally captured a very strange image. On the screen, they saw two people rising straight up from the underwater world. Their speed was also very fast. It completely broke the understanding of common sense. However, before they could see clearly, the two people seemed to have noticed something. Then, the entire image turned into a message disconnected. The person who received the image report shocked my whole family. There were actually human activities under the Atlantic Ocean. This was big news of the century. At that time, the country that received this news was shaken. Chapter 1051. When Xiao Jin floated to the surface of the sea, she paid special attention to see if there were any traces of Mo Huan. She just wanted to kill this person as soon as possible. During the process of floating up, she did feel something. Another array formation master had been here. She was 100% sure. Xiao Jin thought of the future in the time formation point. The time formation point said that the future was targeted at her future. Although she was fake, the other things were real. Everyone existed, and everyone had experienced these things. If that was the case, Mo Huan must have come to the same place and met Mo Jiang and Ah Ju. Without any hesitation, he ran away. So Mo Jiang and you would know about this. Xiao Jin went to the sea and teleported back to the hotel with Song Yanqing. When she saw the time, she realized that the time was synchronized with the time formation point. In other words, she had stayed in the time formation point for a month and a week. That was how much time had passed here. The 2 months in the time formation point was about the same. Anyway, it was the holidays and the new year was coming. Xiao Jin was speechless. It's over. Xiao Fei might have fainted from crying too much by now. Fortunately, Mo Jiang was quite self-aware. Before he left, he probably realized that they might not know when they would come back, so he had been renewing the hotel bill. So it was not a big deal to suddenly return to the hotel. As long as the room was still there, it was fine. The two of them pretended to come back from outside. When they returned to the hotel, the first thing they did was to charge their phones, change their clothes, and buy plane tickets to return home. Song Yanqing seemed to have a lot of things to do, but he did not know how to discuss it with Xiao Jin. After all, the most important thing for him now was to report to his family. In the past, it could be forgiven for a few days. This time, he had been missing for more than a month. The capital was probably in an uproar. Therefore, when he returned to the hotel, his phone did not stop ringing after it was charged. How could he have the time to discuss other things with Xiao Jin? Fortunately, the phone did not have any abnormalities in the sea. It could still be used after being charged. As soon as Xiao Jin turned on his phone, at least 100 messages popped up in an instant. There was even a message from Musilian that attracted the most attention. Musillian, my sister's brain hasn't been working well ever since she woke up in the hospital. If you want money, you can just tell me. At least reply to a message. He suspected that Xiao Jin had been kidnapped. He confirmed with his eyes that this was indeed the real world. Even Mu Qi couldn't find another person who was as stupid as him. Missed calls wouldn't appear when the phone was turned off, but there were hundreds of SMS notifications. Many of them were from the spirit group. Xiao Jin was speechless. This time, he would probably be nagged by Xiao Fei until the new year. While she was still reading the message, another call came in. The caller was Zhongli Peining. Boss, my God, you finally turned on your phone. Where did you go? Even such a calm girl was about to cry. One could only imagine what the outside world was like when Xiao Jin suddenly disappeared for more than a month. Xiao Jin sighed and said, "Something happened. I was closed for more than a month. What's wrong?" Naturally, he would not tell the spirit group about the time matrix points. Even if they knew, they couldn't even go to the underground palace. The current technology could not reach such a deep underwater world, and their abilities were not enough. You don't know, but something big has happened in the past month. There have been several particularly ridiculous incidents. If it weren't for Mo Jiang, many things would have happened. Zhongli Peining's voice was nervous. There are too many things. I'll tell you when you come back. Chapter 1052. Okay. After all, they had been away for more than a month. Xiao Jin thought that it would probably not be peaceful. However, since Mo Jiang was there, it proved that the major events had been suppressed. However, now that Xiao Jin was not there, the spirit group did not feel safe. She hung up the phone. After Zhongli Peining's call, Mu Qiji's call came in. At this time, it should be night in the country. He just happened to call. When he heard that it had been connected, he was a little surprised. After all, it had been more than a month. Their phone had always been turned off. After the call was connected, Mu Qiji immediately said, "Xiao Jin." His voice was filled with unconcealed concern and doubt. Xiao Jin immediately said, "Qiji, it's me." Mu Qiji was silent for about 3 seconds. He was not in a hurry to say anything. He only said, "Where have you been? Why has your phone been turned off?" "I'm abroad." Xiao Jin thought for a moment and said, "Something happened, so my phone was turned off. It has been sealed. I can't contact anyone in that place. I'm fine. Song Yanqing is fine too. We'll be back soon. We've already bought plane tickets for tomorrow morning." After all, the distance between abroad and the country was too far. It was a little unrealistic to use the transmission array to teleport back directly. Mu Qiji slowly took a deep breath. "You're with Song Yanqing. How about this? If there's anything, we'll talk when you come back. Give Mom a call first." After all, it was Xiao Jin's matter. It was not easy to interfere. However, it had been more than a month. Xiao Fei was very worried at home. She had cried several times. Not only was the Mu family looking for him, but the Song family was also looking for him. When he heard that Song Yanqing was with Xiao Jin, Mu Qiji was relieved. This time, he was probably going to teach Xiao Jin a lesson. All right. Xiao Jin also knew that Xiao Fei was probably feeling terrible now. She didn't know how worried he was. After hanging up the phone, she immediately called Xiao Fei. He didn't know what time it was in China, but Xiao Fei quickly picked up the phone. She probably didn't expect Xiao Jin to call her directly. When Xiao Fei picked up the phone, she sounded a little incredulous. "Jin." "Yes, Fei Fei. It's me." As soon as he finished speaking, a woman's high-pitched cries could be heard from the other side. Where have you been, Jean? Do you know that you scared your mother to death? Why have you turned off your phone for more than a month? I'm so afraid that you've been sold to the mountains. Xiao Jean, when she left, she said that she was going abroad. How could she be sold to the mountains? Thinking that Xiao Fei would cry for a long time this time, Xiao Jean could only sigh faintly and apologize. I'm sorry. Something unexpected happened to me. I'm sealed in a place isolated from the world. There's no electricity, and I can't contact you. I'm sorry. We've already bought the tickets. We'll be back soon. Don't worry. Are you crazy? How can I not worry? Your mother is worried to death now. Xiao Fei couldn't stop crying. It's been more than a month. You're getting bolder and bolder. You and Lord Song disappeared for a month without saying goodbye this time. Do you know that the Song family is going crazy? Your mother not only lost you, but also doesn't know how to explain it to the Song family. Woo 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 woo, Xiao Jin said, Song Yanqing is also with me. He's already calling his family. Don't be nervous. Don't cry. Chapter 1053. That was what she said, but if she really didn't cry, how could Xiao Fei stop? As soon as the call connected, Xiao Fei cried for half an hour. She was too worried. Xiao Jin understood Xiao Fei's worries, but she couldn't do anything about the time zone. She didn't know that she would stay for so long. Xiao Fei's cries were accompanied by other people's voices. Xiao Jin heard Musichu's voice. He probably knew that Xiao Fei had contacted Xiao Jin. Musichu and the others were quietly listening to Xiao Jin's recent situation. There were many things that couldn't be said over the phone. Xiao Jin could only say, I'll tell you when I come back. Song Yanqing and I are going to eat. Time passed in the time zone, but at least they would feel full after eating. They weren't very hungry after coming out, but they were still hungry. They were going to eat soon. Song Yanqing called the hotel to prepare food. Xiao Fei sobbed, You can still eat. Xiao Jin, she couldn't eat. She could only answer the phone while looking at Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing was also constantly answering the phone. He basically didn't stop. When he saw Xiao Jin looking over, he gestured to Xiao Jin, indicating that he was still on the phone and couldn't stop. He disappeared for more than a month this time, and even his work progress fell behind. Although his father could help with many things, Song Yanqing's father wasn't very busy this time. Not seeing him for more than a month was enough to make some panic in his heart. He only had one son. Nothing must happen to him. Xiao Jin listened to Xiao Fei's cries, and his thoughts drifted a little. It was mainly because he thought that Song Yanqing was here now. And 10,000 years ago, Song Yanqing entered the Rakshasa world. How did he get out? Xiao Jin was a spirit master of speech. Moving between two spaces was something that Xiao Jin couldn't do without a spatial array point. Moreover, he had probably paid a hefty price for opening the border back then. Li Jiao said that he was in great pain in the Rakshasa world. Xiao Jin roughly knew that even though Song Yanqing was here now, he must have something that was related to the Rakshasa world. Watching Song Yanqing calmly talking with his family, Xiao Jin fell into a trance. Song Yanqing turned around and saw Xiao Jin staring at her through the phone. She smiled and reached out to stroke Xiao Jin's hair as she continued to speak calmly. It seemed that he would not be able to rest tonight. Jin, you can't do this again in the future. You can't not say hello again, okay? Xiao Fei's cries still didn't stop. It's so chaotic abroad, and guns are legal. Mom is afraid that you'll be kidnapped into the mafia or sold by someone outside. Think about it, there are foreign organizations that specialize in collecting human organs. It's so scary, so scary. Xiao Jin didn't feel scared. Xiao Fei felt a lingering fear as she spoke. Xiao Jin comforted her helplessly. I'm really fine. I'll fly back tomorrow. It's just that I might only arrive the day after tomorrow for you guys. Xiao Fei wasn't too happy. Why don't you guys set off immediately? Xiao Jin said, we're a little tired and need to rest for the night. They had just come out of the time array point, so some things still needed to be taken care of. Xiao Fei couldn't do anything. She didn't know what Xiao Jin had experienced. She could only talk for more than 10 minutes before hanging up the phone. Chapter 1054. The hotel staff had already served the food. Xiao Jin opened the door. As soon as she hung up Xiao Fei's call, the second call came from the Ji family. It was Ji Sikai. Xiao Jin paused. She didn't expect that this person would call her. After she answered the call, the hotel staff pushed the dining car into the room to prepare for them. Xiao Jin heard Ji Sikai's cold voice, I heard that you went missing. Xiao Jin, if I went missing, would you still be able to get through the phone? Song Yanqing seemed to have sensed something when he received Ji Sikai's call. He glanced at Song Yunxian indifferently while talking on the phone. It seems that you're fine. Ji Sikai sneered. The capital has been turned upside down because you haven't seen it for more than a month. You even disappeared with that person from the Song family. Third grandpa has been missing you recently. If you have time, give them a call so that they won't worry too much. Xiao Jin said calmly, I know. I'll tell them that I'm safe. Many people must have contacted her after knowing that she had gone missing. Now she had to reply to them one by one. Otherwise, many people would still miss her in their hearts. Song Yunxian didn't expect that many people would be concerned about her whereabouts after she had been missing for so long. Seeing her reply, Ji Sikai only asked, when will you come back? Xiao Jin said, tomorrow. I'm in Iceland now. Receiving this answer, Ji Sikai hung up the phone. The dining car had been arranged. Song Yunxian began to eat. After all, she was really hungry. Song Yanqing was still on the phone. It was impossible for him to hang up the phone. Song Yanqing could only sit down to eat and talk at the same time. It was more time-consuming. Fortunately, they had enough time to rest now. Mo Jiang and Meng Qingyu also sent messages to Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin didn't talk about it on the phone. He just said that he would talk about it when he came back. She came out of the time matrix and knew those things. She felt a little tired. She wasn't physically tired, but she couldn't hide her mental exhaustion. She knew everything from the formation point. When she thought of Mo Fei Jin and those spiritual readers who had sacrificed themselves, she sighed slightly. When it was already late, Xiao Jin's phone was the first to stop ringing. Song Yanqing had been on the phone for a few hours and finally had a chance to take a breather. He put down his phone and smiled bitterly at Xiao Jin. After we go back, we probably won't be able to see each other before the new year. This time, he had been missing for more than a month and had left behind too many things. He had to make up for it when he returned. He also had to accept the supervision of his family's face mask. I'm fine. Xiao Jin pursed his lips and said softly, rest early. We'll talk about it when we get back tomorrow. If we can't meet, we can call. Song Yanqing nodded and looked at her gently. When he saw that Xiao Jin was about to return to his room, his fingers twitched slightly. Thinking of what had happened in the array point, his Adam's apple bobbed up and down. He wanted to change, but he felt that it was inappropriate. He wasn't sure if what he had seen in the array point was the same as what Xiao Jin had seen. But after Xiao Jin returned to his bedroom, she came back out not long after. She looked at Song Yanqing and hesitated for a few seconds. She asked, "Can I ask you something?" Song Yanqing nodded and hid his real thoughts. His eyes were still gentle. "What do you want to know? What happened in the array point?" Chapter 1055. I have a lot of things to say to you. She knew the past and knew the relationship between her and Song Yanqing. Xiao Jin was still so calm, and she no longer resisted Song Yanqing. Some things were taken for granted in her eyes. But because of the tens of thousands of years, this relationship was covered with a hazy veil. She thought about it and was not sure if her thoughts would scare Song Yanqing. She said in a soft and natural tone, "Can I sleep with you?" Of course, she just wanted to sleep with him because she had too many questions to ask Song Yanqing. Just like in the Matrix point. Song Yanqing did not expect that Xiao Jin would take the initiative to speak. He was stunned for a second and laughed involuntarily. Okay. How could he disagree? Xiao Jin nodded. I have a lot to say to you. Of course, Song Yanqing could figure out the subtext of this sentence. Although he had a lot of images of the past in his mind, he would not take the opportunity to do anything. Xiao Jin's initiative to ask was already a big change. He nodded, and Xiao Jin went to take a shower first. He still had some things to do, and he had no other thoughts now. From time to time, a phone call would come in. At least for a short time, he and Xiao Jin did not have time. After taking a shower, Xiao Jin changed into a set of white pajamas. She slept in Song Yanqing's room. The bed had been replaced by a new one by the hotel. When she went to bed, she was a little sleepy. She lay on the bed with her mobile phone and began to send WeChat messages to them. After a while, Song Yanqing came in. Seeing Xiao Jin lying on the bed where he wanted to rest, Song Yanqing's heart beat uncontrollably. Soon, it calmed down naturally. Just like in countless days and nights, the relationship between the two began to become natural and harmonious. He came in with a notebook in his hand. Putting the laptop on the bed, he bent down to touch Xiao Jin's cheek and kissed her forehead. I'm going to take a shower. Xiao Jin nodded. He curled up under the blanket and started the game. He went into the bathroom to take a shower. The sound of water splashing could be heard, but Xiao Jin didn't have any romantic thoughts. She kept thinking about the past. Xiao Jin summoned the rule array and wanted to ask it why he had the rule array point 10,000 years ago. However, the rule array point did not provide any benefits, so it pretended to be dead the entire time. No matter how Xiao Jin asked, it did not speak. She used the array point to reverse the situation at that time, which was why the Rakshasa realm was sealed back. However, the price they paid for this was the lives of all the spiritualists in the four kingdoms, as well as the disappearance of their civilization. The survivors no longer remembered any information about the civilization. To them, survival had become instinct. Such a huge change. Only this matter and the 9 array points, as well as what happened to Song Yanqing when he went to the Rakshasa realm, were the current mysteries. She had expected that the rule would not reveal any information. She took it back. Song Yanqing came out of the shower and changed into a simple black silk pajamas. The collar was embroidered with complicated patterns, exquisite and noble. When he came over, he pulled open the blanket. The bed was very big, but he still subconsciously leaned towards Xiao Jin. He took Xiao Jin's body into his arms, turned sideways, looked at her in different expression, and just asked, "You want to ask me what I saw on the array point?" It was clearly the first time the two of them had such intimate contact in the modern world, but it seemed that they had done it countless times. As a result, they were so natural that they didn't feel the slightest bit inappropriate. Chapter 1056. Warmth and natural fragrance flowed in the quilt. He had just finished bathing, and the fragrance on his body was obvious. Her nose twitched, and she smelled this pleasant smell. She snuggled close to him and said softly, "Yes, I want to know what you saw in the formation point." "I saw the past in the time formation point." She did not directly talk about the past. Instead, she first talked about how she experienced the fake future. She then snorted and said, "Time Matrix Point probably thinks that it's flawless, but I guess you won't leave me alone when I'm in a coma for 2 months. Song Yanqing also seemed a little surprised. 2 months in a coma. He thought for a moment, and then covered one side of Qiao Jin's face with his hand, and said with a chuckle, "It really didn't do it well enough. If you were in a coma for 2 months, I don't think I would even be in the mood to work." He couldn't imagine Qiao Jin being in a coma for 2 months. Qiao Jin nodded. "I think so, but I stayed for a few days, and I know the whereabouts of the 6th formation point. When I go back, I will go find her." Song Yanqing said in a low voice, "What use do they have for you?" Qiao Jin shook her head. "I don't know. I didn't see them in the past. I don't know if it was the time formation point alone that allowed me to see the scene before my death. I didn't see the people and things related to the 9 formation points, and now I have something I don't understand." She paused, and then asked Song Yanqing, "What did you see in the formation point?" Song Yanqing thought of all that, and sighed softly. "I saw my past. I was the spiritual master of speech of the Lian Kingdom, right? What had been happening all along was confirmed. He had a close relationship with Qiao Jin 10,000 years ago. They had been together since birth, and were a match made in heaven. However, what he saw was not complete. He didn't see anything about the succession ceremony. His memory stopped at a time. At that time, he had been guarding the border of the Rakshasa world, and also saw those demons who tried their best to break through the border. He also lost his memory. As a spiritualist of speech, he had a premonition that something was amiss. He felt that he had given up something important. It was just that when he was inside, he remembered how lucky he was. Lucky that Qiao Jin was still alive. However, most of his memories were of seeing Qiao Jin from time to time. Although he had memories, he was the same as Qiao Jin, unable to control his own body. Everything was developing according to the past. Qiao Jin was equivalent to his wife. Many things had happened between him and Qiao Jin. He had done everything he could. Even now, he couldn't ignore that feeling. It turned out that 10,000 years ago, they were once so close that they couldn't distinguish between each other. However, there were more things that Song Yanqing couldn't recall. He told all of this to Qiao Jin. Although he didn't specifically say anything, when he returned to the Shanghai Kingdom and met Qiao Jin was well aware of the relationship between the two of them. Qiao Jin's head was nestled in his arms, and she raised her head to look at him. Song Yanqing gazed at her clear eyes, and quickly covered them with his hand. There was a low chuckle in his voice. "Go to sleep. We have to get up early tomorrow morning." Qiao Jin nodded. Song Yanqing reached out and hugged her. His embrace was warm, but he hugged her a little tighter. The two of them slept in each other's arms and had a good night's sleep. Chapter 1057. When they left the next morning, they were in a hurry. After all, they had to catch a plane early in the morning. The two of them got up and could continue to rest on the plane. There was a qualitative change in their relationship. At least when they were outside, Song Yanqing would naturally hold her hand and would not be as restrained as before. Qiao Jin was also much more natural. In front of the person she liked, she was still so calm and would not have any inappropriate resistance. After recovering her memory, the only thing that changed was her relationship with Song Yanqing. Everything else was normal. After more than 10 hours of flying, they finally arrived at the capital at noon. Because they knew that Xiao Jin was coming back today, Mu Qizhi was the one who came to pick her up. Song Yanqing was picked up by the Song family as soon as she landed. They were going to send her back, but after knowing that Mu Qizhi was coming to pick her up, Song Yanqing did not say anything. She said goodbye to Xiao Jin and got into their respective cars. Mu Qizhi came to pick her up. Musichu and Musilian were also in the car. Musichu was easy to talk to, but when Musilian saw Xiao Jin, he shouted, "You still know to come back, you still know to come back." He said resentfully, "You disappeared for more than a month, and you didn't even send a message to the family to bring brother Yanqing along. Xiao Jin, you are becoming more and more insensible and mischievous." This is what Grandpa said. "When you get home, you will get it." Xiao Jin was still holding a cup of milk tea that he had just bought at the airport. He drank it and said calmly, "I was just stranded because of an emergency. Aren't I back now? Look at your attitude." Musilian pointed at Xiao Jin and clicked his tongue. "If you go back like this, you'll be scolded by Mom 3 times. If I were Mom, I'd definitely whip you with a feather duster. Why does she only whip me every time and not you? You've obviously made more mistakes than me. Who else would disappear like you? Alright, let's talk when we get home." Mu Qizhi saw Musilian talking nonsense in front of Xiao Jin, so he interrupted their conversation and let Xiao Jin get in the car. Mu Qizhi drove in the front, Musichu sat in the front passenger seat, and Musilian sat with her in the back. After driving, Musichu turned to look at Xiao Jin. "Where did you go this time?" Xiao Jin naturally replied, "Iceland." "What happened to you that you'd be trapped for a month?" Xiao Jin blinked. "You can think of it as an isolated space. It took me some time to solve it, so I went missing for more than a month." Musichu frowned. "So brother Yanqing was trapped too?" Xiao Jin nodded. Mu Qizhi didn't quite agree. "Xiao Jin, it's dangerous for you to do these things alone. Why did Song Yanqing have to go with you?" Xiao Jin said naturally, "He was worried about me. He didn't feel safe letting me go alone." Mu Qizhi, he didn't expect it to be such a simple reason. Musilian was caught off guard and was a little angry. "If you ask me, brother Yanqing didn't know what was going on with you. It was such a serious thing, and he went missing for more than a month. Do you know that the Song family is going to be turned upside down? The capital hasn't been peaceful this month, and it's all because of brother Yanqing's disappearance. Many people outside are wondering if something happened to him." Xiao Jin didn't say anything. Musilian said, "I thought you were kidnapped. I thought that even if the kidnapper wanted money, he would have to give me a message. I'm starting to wonder if you were killed. How tragic." Xiao Jin. Chapter 1058. The 3 brothers said that they would talk about it when they got home, but they were still talking about Xiao Jin along the way. They told her fully what had happened during the month of disappearance. Xiao Fei cried almost every 3 days and cried every week, especially when she couldn't get any information from Xiao Jin. "But someone still came to tell us that you would come back." Musilian suddenly said, "It was Mo Jiang." Mo Jiang had met them once in Li Jiao's world, so Musilian believed her when she said it. But they didn't know Xiao Fei. Xiao Jin nodded. "Mo Jiang knows where we are. If she says that we will come back, I will definitely come back. Don't worry at all. Easy for you to say." Mu Qizhi still scolded him. Through the rearview mirror, he disagreed with Xiao Jin's words. You'd better think about how to explain it to your parents when you go back. You're already an adult, yet you don't have any sense of propriety. Xiao Jin, very good. Children at home had to suffer these criticisms. When Mu Qiji's car drove into the Mu family's house, Xiao Jin saw Xiao Fei's figure guarding outside the door from afar. She looked around from time to time, looking a little anxious. When she saw the car drive in, her eyes lit up. She immediately saw Xiao Jin. Mu Qiji parked the car in the courtyard and let them down first before driving into the garage. As soon as Xiao Fei saw Xiao Jin, she immediately hugged her and began to cry. You damn child, you're finally back. Do you know that Mom was worried to death about you? Why didn't you listen to me at all? If you went somewhere, you should at least leave a message for the family. Why did you disappear without a word? Xiao Jin knew that whatever she said now was wrong, so she obediently kept quiet. Behind her stood Mu Zhenming and Mu Xiangshan. Mu Zhenming's expression was complicated. After all, it was good that he was back. Mu Xiangshan still looked as steady as Mount Tai. Wasn't he just missing for a month and a half? What's the big deal? At first, he was still worried, but now that he saw Xiao Jin return, he wasn't too worried anymore. At least he was back, which meant that nothing dangerous had happened. Xiao Fei's tears came at a whim, and at this moment, they felt like they were free. Xiao Jin knew that she was genuinely upset, so she could only pat Xiao Fei's back and say nothing. She was the one in the wrong, so anything she said now would be wrong. Making Xiao Fei cry was the best way to vent. After crying for about 2 to 3 minutes, Mu Zhenming couldn't stand it anymore and coughed slightly. Fei, let the children go in first. If there's anything, let's sit down and talk. Xiao Fei stopped crying and said, yes. Probably because she cried too hard, she even burped. Everyone, Xiao Jin followed them into the house. This time, it was more like an interrogation. She sat alone on a small sofa. Facing everyone's interrogation, she didn't seem nervous. Muzillion was still fanning the flames. Mom, look, when I made a mistake in the past, you hit me directly. How many times has it been? The first few times, she went missing for a few days and nights without contacting you. This time, it's been more than a month. How can this be? Children don't grow up if you don't hit them. Mom, hit her. Mu Qiji scolded coldly, Qi Lian, you'd better behave yourself. Muzillion felt very wronged and refused to be treated unfairly. Then why do I get hit every time I make a mistake? Mu Zhenming had double standards. You know that she's your sister. It's normal for you to get hit, but how can you hit your sister? Chapter 1059. Muzillion, Dad, listen to yourself. Is that what you're saying? Mu Xiangshan chuckled and watched the show from the sidelines. Let's not talk about this first. Mu Zhenming stared at Xiao Jin and continued, tell us what you did first. Xiao Jin. It's useless even if I tell you. This involves some spiritual readers. I just stayed in a different world for more than a month. She definitely wouldn't tell them about her resurrection. Xiao Fei and the others could accept her sudden awakening. However, they probably felt that Xiao Jin was no longer the Xiao Jin of the past. Naturally, it wasn't appropriate to tell them about her resurrection. Moreover, she had such a complicated entanglement with Song Yanqing. It was even more inappropriate to tell them about it. The knowledge involved was far from what ordinary people could understand. Xiao Fei, then you should at least tell us in advance. Xiao Jin sighed. There are some things that I don't know when I enter and how long it will take. This time, it can't be helped that I've been missing for more than a month. But you have to believe that I'll be fine, so don't worry too much about me. How can we not worry about this kind of thing just because you said so? Mu Jinming frowned slightly. You have your own things to do. We don't care. But I think it's better if this kind of thing doesn't happen again. We're fine, but your mother can't take it. She watched dramas at home every day when she had nothing to do. After watching too many melodramatic plots, it was easy to think the worst of everything. In just a few days, she had thought of several versions of the story. The most common one was that Xiao Jin was sold to the mountains to be a wife for someone else. Although they all felt that it was quite ridiculous. Xiao Jin admitted his mistake honestly. I'm sorry, Fei Fei. I was wrong. I won't do it again. Muzillion quickly added, but I'll dare to do it again next time. This time, it was Musachu who was quick enough to hit the back of Muzillion's head. Muzillion covered the back of his head and began to howl in anger. I'm just telling the truth, you just can't accept it. Musachu said indifferently, you shouldn't be the one saying the truth. You just want the world to be in chaos. If you really want to, do you believe that mom will beat you up? Muzillion, why was Xiao Jin always the one who got beaten up when he made a mistake? He widened his eyes. Fortunately, Xiao Fei's attention was not on him. She just looked at Xiao Jin and sobbed, there really won't be any more. Xiao Jin nodded. Yes. After thinking for a while, she added, I'll definitely bring a power bank. If there's no signal, I'll try my best to create a signal and send out a message. Everyone, Xiao Fei still glared at Xiao Jin. After her incident, it would be Song Yanqing's turn. Mu Jinming was a little confused. Did young Master Song experience something similar with you? Xiao Jin nodded and said, something like that. Why is he always with you? Mu Jinming expressed his opinion on this. Xiao Jin, we all know what you are doing, but the Song family doesn't know. If you disappear with Song Yanqing like this, if something happens, it will be really difficult for us to explain. After all, you are our sister. But Song Yanqing is not a member of the Mu family. He is the only heir of the Song family. If anything happens to him, the Song family will not talk to us nicely. Chapter 1060. Since she disappeared with Song Yanqing, then Song Yanqing and Xiao Jin must be equally capable. However, Song Yanqing was still the heir of the Song family. He had such an important identity. If he went out with Xiao Jin and something happened, one could imagine what the Song family would think. After all, that was their child. Xiao Jin lowered his head and sighed. I'll try my best. He would try his best not to bring Song Yanqing with him in the future. Besides, she probably wouldn't go anywhere else. The only thing that mattered now was whether Song Yanqing still had other things in the Rakshasa realm. His body was here, but it could also exist in other ways. After all, Xiao Jin's soul could wander in the world back then. There was no guarantee what Song Yanqing in the Luosha realm was like. He felt pain, which meant that his involvement with the Luosha realm had never been cut off. He had been watched by the Luosha realm since he was a child. One could imagine how hard Song Yanqing's life had been for so many years. She felt very uncomfortable when she thought of all this, but she had to think of a way. At least now she knew the past and recovered most of her memory. Now she had to find a way to find Mo Huan and kill him. Since the child is back, it's good that she's fine. After watching for a long time, Mu Xiangshan finally spoke. She just got off the plane and is probably tired. Let her rest. Muzillion was a little shocked. It's over just like that. You don't care. She had been missing for more than a month and caused such a big trouble. Now he didn't care. This was too much. If he couldn't contact her for a week, Xiao Fei would break his legs when he came back. More than a month was enough for Xiao Jin to break his legs. Xiao Fei glared at Muzillion. What else do you want your sister to do? She just came back from abroad and is already very tired. As her brother, you don't want her to be well. Are you even human? Muzillion, what did I say? He wasn't the one who committed the crime. When he heard Xiao Fei's words, he only felt sorrow in his heart. As a mother, she was too much. Did he still have any status in this family? Mu Xiangshan's words were the final word. Mu Zhenming also nodded. You just came back from abroad. You must be very tired. Go and rest first. If there's anything, we'll talk about it after you've rested. Qiao Jin also nodded obediently. Okay, Zhenming. Mu Zhenming's mouth twitched. Mu Xiangshan, at least there's one thing that hasn't changed. He's still so unfilial. Everyone else, Muzillion watched as Qiao Jin went upstairs to rest. Seeing that Xiao Fei and the rest really didn't care about him anymore, Muzillion muttered to himself, if I go missing for more than a month, will Mom cry for me? Muzichu was very calm. If you go missing for more than a month, you'll find that we've already set up a tombstone for you when you come back. Muzillion. I seem to have been seriously offended. Mu Qiji also scolded him disapprovingly. If you don't have Qiao Jin's abilities, don't do such things. She's a spiritual reader, you're not. You're just an ordinary person. Just focus on being a prodigal. Muzillion, he was about to vomit blood. How was he a prodigal? He didn't expect his big brother to have such an impression of him. Muzillion was furious. He wasn't. So what if he was? Did prodigals have no human rights? Chapter 1061. Muzillion thought for a moment, but no one paid any attention to his performance. Since they had interrogated Qiao Jin and now that Qiao Jin was back, the Mu family was no longer in a hurry. Mu Zhenming and the others had applied for leave today, so Qiao Jin went up to rest. They planned to wait for Qiao Jin to rest before going to eat hot pot at night. Muzillion, yes, they didn't plan to punish Qiao Jin. They even planned to celebrate Qiao Jin's return by eating hot pot at night. If it were him, he might only be able to eat his nutritious meal at the hospital tonight. However, Muzillion still muttered to Muzichu. Why do you think Qiao Jin brought Brother Yanqing with her? Does her matter have anything to do with Brother Yanqing? Muzichu glanced at him. What does it have to do with you? You can either ask Qiao Jin or Brother Yanqing. See who will tell you. Muzillion. Don't you want to know? Muzichu, I want to know. Muzillion, he understood that his brother was bullshitting. When Mu Qiji and Mu Zhenming went up to discuss things, Xiao Fei went to Qiao Jin's room to talk to her alone. Mu Xiangshan stayed behind and looked at the remaining two brothers meaningfully. Haven't you watched TV dramas? The less you know, the better. Otherwise, it won't do you any good. Muzillion sneered. Grandpa, do you think we're in a TV drama? It's normal for us to be curious about Qiao Jin. Aren't you curious? I don't believe you. Mu Xiangshan, I'm curious, but a qualified grandpa would never interfere with the younger generation's matters. Mu Qilian said, you make it sound as if you can intervene just because you want to. In the past, you intervened in my father's matter and almost caused the birth of my parents. Don't you feel guilty in your heart? Mu Xiangshan's face darkened. Muzichu said leisurely, if you continue to talk nonsense like this, you will have no helpers in this family. Muzillion, Mu Xiangshan was stabbed in the heart. He flicked his sleeves and left angrily. You'll be beaten to death by your mother sooner or later. Muzillion, that's impossible. I'm thick-skinned. Muzichu, what was there to be proud of? The two brothers were still fooling around in the house. Upstairs, Xiao Jin entered the house and knew that Xiao Fei was behind him. Song Yanqing called and asked if she had reached home. She said, "We're here." Song Yanqing replied, "I'm." At this moment, Xiao Jin heard, "Missing for more than a month. Are you trying to piss me off?" Xiao Jin. "Is it your father?" Song Yanqing replied, It's true that I've been missing for too long. He can't accept it." Song Shireen, who had always been good-tempered, was furious. She couldn't blame her son, but she couldn't blame Xiao Jin either. She could only vent her anger on the side. Song Yanqing even called Xiao Jin. He was very angry and said, "It seems that you and Miss Xiao are indeed close." After such a thing happened, the young couple still acted like they were in love. As a father, how could he not be frustrated? Unexpectedly, Song Yanqing actually made an N sound and said softly, "Isn't she also 20 years old? She can get married." Song Shireen, Xiao Jin, Xiao Fei came in from behind. "Who were you talking to?" Xiao Jin said, "Song Yanqing, Fei. She can get married at 20 years old." Xiao Fei, she sucked in a cold breath. Chapter 1062. Back then, Xiao Jin had said that she had no intention of getting married in this lifetime. It had only been a few months. Did you hear the sound of a slap to the face? Slap. It was crisp and loud. More importantly, Xiao Fei almost fainted from shock. What do you mean by that? She had only been dating Song Yanqing for a short period of time. She couldn't possibly be thinking of getting married now, right? Xiao Fei had indeed been worried that Xiao Jin didn't want to get married, but she didn't want her to get married so soon. Xiao Jin lowered her eyes and said, "No, Song Yanqing said that I can get married at 20. Of course not." Xiao Fei was the first to disagree. "How old are you? You haven't even graduated yet. It's too ridiculous to get married so early. It's normal for girls to get married at 25 or 26 years old. You and Lord Song have only been dating for a short period of time. The two of you have to understand each other. You can talk about it after 5 or 6 years." Song Yanqing heard everything clearly on the other end of the phone. He raised his eyes slightly and looked at Jean, whose face had darkened. He said softly, "Jean, I'll call you back later." "Xiao Jin, okay." After hanging up, Xiao Fei dared to speak boldly. She stepped forward and grabbed Xiao Jin's hand. "Mom won't let you get married so soon." Xiao Jin looked at her strangely. "Weren't you worried that I wouldn't get married at that time?" "I was worried that you wouldn't get married because you said you didn't want to," Xiao Fei said confidently. "How would I know that you would be dating Lord Song later on? But it's normal for girls to fall in love at 20 years old. Your Uncle Zhenming and I." Cough, cough, cough. Xiao Fei realized that her words were inappropriate for children, so she changed the topic. "It's fine to fall in love, but it's too early for you to get married. You should at least wait until you graduate before you consider it." "I didn't say that I want to get married now." Xiao Jin shrugged. "I'm just asking." Her relationship with Song Yanqing would not change even if she got married or not. Marriage was just a shackle given by society to love. It did not mean anything. Xiao Fei was relieved to hear this. However, she thought that Song Yanqing was almost 26 years old. It was normal for him to consider marriage. She asked hesitantly, "Did Lord Song say something to you?" "He's 26 years old, so it's understandable if he wants to get married. But you've only known each other for such a short time, and he already has the idea of getting married?" If that was the case, Xiao Fei also felt that his daughter would leave him in an instant. "No, he didn't." He just said that to his father casually. There was no need for marriage to prove it. Xiao Jin smiled at Xiao Fei. Fei Fei, you don't have to worry too much about me. I know what I'm doing. Song Yanqing is a good person. Xiao Fei, him being a good person and him wanting to marry his daughter were two different concepts. Xiao Fei waited for her missing daughter to come back, and now, she received such a blow. She suddenly felt a little worried. After talking to Xiao Jin, she left the room and prepared to talk to Mu Zhenming about this matter. After all, she could not find a suitable person to talk to. Xiao Jin saw her leave and chose an address on his phone. It was Dongshan Park. Chapter 1063. Since he knew that there was a formation point there, Xiao Jin would not let the other party wait in vain. It had been more than a month now, which was about the same as 2 months in the formation point. At this time, Fan Zhaoyao should have entered the East Mountain Garden to work. The future of the formation point was fake for her, but it was real for everyone else. Fan Zhaoyao had not been influenced by anyone, so she should be in the hotel now. However, before going, she still had to meet with Zhongli Peining. She wanted to know what had happened in the capital recently. Mo Jiang probably finished filming and called Xiao Jin when it was close to night. There was no worry in his tone. You're back. As if it was expected. Xiao Jin said, I'm back. Did something happen in the capital recently? It's not a big deal. Mo Jiang's statement was actually the same as what the time formation point said to deceive her in the formation point. At that time, after you entered the formation point, a strange man appeared not long after and wanted to come down. I noticed him, but he left very quickly. I don't know who that person was, but I felt that his strength was not inferior to mine. He just left without a direct confrontation with me. Mo Jiang was obviously talking about Mo Huan. Now they were in reality, not in the formation point. Xiao Jin asked for more details. At that time, he came down with a group of people. Yes, that group of people came down with him. Mo Jiang's voice contained some faint mockery. He used them as scapegoats. Those people couldn't even enter and were trapped outside the range of the time formation point. They couldn't even enter the palace. They should have been dragged down to be scapegoats. When that person saw me, he ran away without hesitation. I think it's not that he didn't want to deal with me, but that he didn't realize that we would be down there. He should have come to get something. Then you only have the time formation point. Xiao Jin thought for a moment. She couldn't even get the time formation point, let alone Mo Huan. But he could live from 10,000 years ago until now. If he made a deal with the Rakshasa world, it was also unrealistic. Even if he obtained it, he could not violate the characteristics of the time matrix point. At that time, in order to make a deal with the rules, she had sacrificed her own life. Even if she obtained the time array point, she had no ability to use it. Mo Huan went down to get something else. Now that they had left Ice Island, they could not stop him if he wanted to. However, Xiao Jin realized that this person could not survive. She summoned the rules and tried to use them to find Mo Huan. In the end, the result given by the rules was as expected. Against the rules, he didn't mean that he couldn't find Mo Huan, but that Xiao Jin didn't have enough spirit seeds to pay the price. Mo Feiwan alone would not be able to pay such a huge price. It could only be said that too many lives were tied to his shoulders. He had lived for 10,000 years. Back then, he had even dared to make a move against her. Who knew how many lives he had sacrificed to protect her? Xiao Jin closed his eyes slightly. Where are you now? I'm filming. Mo Jiang blew on his fingernails. I just finished filming. I'm preparing to go home. I've been very busy recently. Next month, I'll be filming in Xiangdu again. Xiangdu. Qiao Jin thought of the matter with the spirit group. It seemed that she had to bring this matter up to the standard and let Mo Jiang take care of it. She took the opportunity to ask, "What kind of movie are you filming?" Mo Jiang, "I don't know. Anyway, I'm acting as a vase." Qiao Jin. Chapter 1064. Sometimes, Mo Jiang's righteousness was admirable. Qiao Jin didn't want to waste too much time on her work, so she asked Mo Jiang about what had happened in the capital recently. She was now a member of the spirit group and had dealt with it personally. The incident didn't happen in the capital, but was spread from other places. Many people had died. "Do you know about the burial pits?" Mo Jiang's voice was very calm. Recently, several burial pits like this have been dug in other places. There are hundreds of people in each of the pits, and they are found in all the major cities. The year of death is different, but the way they died is very similar. They were all trapped in the array and bitten to death. Therefore, even in different places, this matter was unified by the spirit group. Perhaps because the killing intent was too strong, when the burial pits were first discovered, many people died unexpectedly. Now, the spirit group has sent many people to investigate, but I don't think they will be able to find anything. That pit is something from decades ago. It's obvious that it has been abandoned long ago. So many people have died. Qiao Jin's brows furrowed tightly. The array had killed so many people. It was obvious that there was a replacement. Where is the nearest burial pit? In Luohe City. Luohe City. Hearing this place, Qiao Jin was a little surprised. This was a city she had been to before, the place where Su Rong and Ming Chu disappeared. This was Su Rong's hometown. However, Su Rong had disappeared for too long. Qiao Jin only remembered it by accident. She said, "I'll go and take a look the day after tomorrow." Tomorrow, she would find Fan Zhaoyao first, and then deal with this matter. She wanted to see if she could directly investigate who the array master behind this was. Mo Jiang said, "Okay, there's someone called Ji Mangmang. You should know her. She is now in Luohe City. If you have any information, you can ask her." Qiao Jin got some information from Mo Jiang. Soon, he called Zhongli Peining. Originally, he wanted to ask her to meet up, but Zhongli Peining didn't have time, so she simply told him some things on the phone. The most important thing in recent times was this burial pit. The burial pits were first discovered in another city, but they gradually began to appear. It was as if something that had been deliberately hidden could no longer be hidden. At the right time, all kinds of accidents happened and it was discovered by others. Then, they followed the vine to find the melon. Among them, there was a burial pit that was not immediately covered up. It was on the local city news and Weibo's trending topic. The corpse burial pit was something from decades ago. Too many people had died there, and no one knew how they died. If it wasn't for the fact that the people outside didn't know anything, and some people said that they had died during the war, it wouldn't have been a big deal. However, things were different now that the array formation was involved. The nature was really too bad, because it was never thought that someone would be so ruthless. Hundreds of people were tortured to death in a pit, and even their bones weren't complete. During this period, other things also happened. The array formation in the corpse burial pit had residual effects, so there was an accident. Mo Jiang was dealing with this thing at that time. Qiao Jin listened to Zhongli Peining's words, and the news he got was similar to what Mo Jiang said. The spirit group couldn't find out who did these arrays. They could only let Qiao Jin do it. Qiao Jin originally planned to do it the day after tomorrow. Now that he thought about it, he might as well just leave Fan Zhaoyao's matter to Mo Jiang and Meng Qingyu. She decided to go to Luohe City tomorrow. Chapter 1065. Song Yanqing had been missing for more than a month this time before he came back. If he ran away with Xiao Jin again, Song Shiyin would probably kill this son with her own hands, so Xiao Jin didn't plan to tell Song Yanqing this time. After eating hot pot at night, when Xiao Jin returned home, Song Yanqing took the initiative to call him. This was the first day back, and the first thing he asked when he called was, "Are you going to do something?" Xiao Jin raised his eyebrows slightly. "You have such a strong premonition now." His ability had improved again. Now he could vaguely sense some Xiao Jin's movements. "Coming back from the array point does feel like I've improved." Song Yanqing didn't hide it from Xiao Jin, but the smile on his lips was very faint. His ability had improved, but his perception of certain things had become stronger and stronger. He could even feel that the Rakshasa world had never left his side. They were still eyeing him covetously. Now, not only when he slept at night, but even during the day, he would feel something tearing at him. From time to time, he would feel pain. That feeling was really torturous. However, Song Yanqing didn't want Xiao Jin to know. "Is that so?" Xiao Jin's voice was a little puzzled. Song Yanqing laughed. "Where are you going?" "Luohe City." Xiao Jin didn't intend to hide it from him, and also stated, "I'm just going to investigate a piece of information. If there's nothing else, don't follow me." He couldn't help but chuckle. "You don't want me to go?" "I really can't go this time. When I came back, there was a joint hearing. This is the first time." He listened to Xiao Jin's voice and sighed. "I just feel that I just want to see you anytime and anywhere. As long as I see you in front of me, I feel much more at ease." This was probably the feeling of completely falling in love with someone. He hoped that she would be by his side all the time and didn't have to go anywhere. If Xiao Jin could ignore these things, how good would that be? Unfortunately, he knew that this was impossible. "We just came back today," Xiao Jin said and glanced out the window again. The moon was high in the sky, and the occasional screams of Musilian playing the game could be heard through the open window. If the window was not closed, the screams would come out. Other than that, everything was quiet. In fact, Xiao Fei was still discussing Xiao Jin with Mu Jinming, so Xiao Jin could always hear them clearly. She heard Xiao Fei say that she had only been dating Song Yanqing for a short while, but she was seduced by Lord Song to the point of wanting to get married. This was too scary. She couldn't help curling her lips. Thinking of something, she couldn't help but ask, "Are you in your own room right now?" He lowered his voice and said with a faint smile, "Of course." Xiao Jin said calmly, "Then I'll come over now." "You?" Song Yanqing raised his eyebrows slightly. Before he could put down his phone, his vision blurred and Xiao Jin appeared in front of him in her pajamas. Seeing Song Yanqing, she smiled naturally and said in a normal tone, "I'll sleep with you. I'll go back early tomorrow morning." He touched his temple with his fingertips and couldn't help but laugh. "Why are you so bold now?" Although he said that, he couldn't hide the joy in his eyes. He stood up and walked towards her. He grabbed her wrist and said softly, "Okay." There was a faint movement outside. He probably thought that Song Yanqing was on the phone in the room. Chapter 1066. If it were in the past, Xiao Jin would not do these things. But after recovering her memory, her attitude towards Song Yanqing was naturally more cordial. In the past, they were naturally intimate like this. There was no sense of violation. She didn't understand love before, but it didn't mean that she didn't know what Song Yanqing meant to her. They were together 10,000 years ago. When Xiao Jin came over, she had already taken a shower, but Song Yanqing hadn't. He gave her his laptop to play games. Xiao Jin was lying on her bed, playing a game on her laptop. Her long, seaweed-like hair was spread out, and the sound of running water could be heard from the bathroom. This should be a scene that made people's imagination run wild, but Xiao Jin's attention was not on it. Thinking about the time, it had been more than half a year since she was resurrected. It would be nearly a year after the new year. A lot of things had happened. She thought of the things that happened in the time frame. This year, the two families would probably celebrate the new year together. She didn't have such a concept for the new year. 10,000 years ago, they didn't have such a festival. Song Yanqing came out of the bathroom after taking a shower. When he opened the door, a faint fragrance came out. He was wearing gray satin pajamas, and when he came out, he went to bed naturally. Seeing Xiao Jin playing games, he reached out under Xiao Jin's shoulder, held her body, kissed her forehead, and asked softly, "Will your family find out that you come here at night?" "No." Xiao Jin said in a flat tone, "Fei and the others never look for me in the middle of the night." It was time for bed. How could Xiao Fei and the others disturb Xiao Jin? Xiao Jin could directly disappear from the bedroom to the Song family's bug ability, and the Mu family couldn't find out. If they found out, Xiao Fei would probably be heartbroken. His daughter was no longer that naive and innocent girl. "You're going to Luohe City tomorrow morning?" Song Yanqing asked, "Then sleep early, you have to take the plane." Xiao Jin smiled and said, "I can get up." She was just casually playing games to pass the time. After a round, she put her laptop aside and lay down with Song Yanqing. She lay on her side in Song Yanqing's arms and felt his heartbeat. It was very calm. She could not help but think of what kind of suffering Song Yanqing would suffer in the Luosha realm. She must be suffering a lot. Sometimes, she could feel it. However, she could not go to the Rakshasa realm, so she knew nothing about all of this. Back then, what was the price that Song Yanqing had paid when he went to the Rakshasa realm? He touched Xiao Jin's cheek and lowered his eyes. "What's wrong? Do you have something on your mind?" "No." Xiao Jin sighed softly. "I just don't understand what happened to us." Spiritual psyche masters were born extraordinary. However, were there twists and turns just because of the Rakshasa realm? Sometimes she felt that there was a bigger problem, but she couldn't touch what it was. Song Yanqing's fingers rubbed back and forth on her face. "It's nothing. I have a hunch that it will be soon." They came back from the time point this time probably because they had touched something. Things would eventually explode. It wouldn't take long for them to understand whether they wanted to give a result to the things that happened 10,000 years ago. Xiao Jin nodded. Song Yanqing mentioned the new year again. "Let's celebrate the new year together this year." Chapter 1067. Xiao Jin thought that the time had been decided, so she didn't have any questions. She nodded and said softly, "Okay, is it at my house?" Yes, they talked about it when they came back. Now Song Yanqing was dating Xiao Jin, and Song Suyu was dating Mu Qiji. It wouldn't be strange for them to celebrate the new year together this year. Okay. Of course, she didn't have any objections. She didn't have any special opinions about this kind of traditional festival. Her eyes were half closed, and her delicate and beautiful face looked as if she had fallen into a deep sleep. Song Yanqing looked at her and said in a low voice, "Are you going to sleep?" "I want to sleep." The two of them didn't have to do anything else when they were together. Xiao Jin just wanted to sleep with Song Yanqing. Even though she didn't understand some things, she was obedient to her heart. Looking at her peaceful face, Song Yanqing's Adam's apple moved, but he couldn't bear to do anything to her. He lowered his head and kissed Xiao Jin. He hugged her and fell into a dream together. They both fell asleep quickly, but in fact, they didn't fall into a deep sleep. Even the slightest movement would wake them up. Xiao Jin was originally asleep, but in the middle of the night, she suddenly felt that something was wrong. There was a strong pressure on her body, as if the person holding her was very strong. She opened her eyes. Song Yanqing's bedroom was next to the bed. The quiet moonlight shone in, and she could clearly see that Song Yanqing's forehead was covered with sweat. He seemed to be dreaming of something extremely painful, or perhaps he was in pain. He frowned and his face was strangely pale. This kind of pain didn't wake him up. Instead, he subconsciously shrank his body, which made Xiao Jin feel a sense of imprisonment. She felt that something was wrong. She reached out and touched Song Yanqing's forehead. He still didn't wake up. His body was even trembling faintly, as if he was experiencing great pain. So much so that his throat was making hissing sounds, as if he was clenching his teeth in pain. Song Yanqing. Xiao Jin immediately shouted and grabbed Song Yanqing's wrist. With this shout, he suddenly opened his eyes. He instantly pursed his lips and turned his gaze over. His eyes were bloodshot, as if he had experienced something extremely terrifying. In an instant, he blinked his eyes again. The red veins disappeared, but his eyes seemed to be a little red. Xiao Jin felt that something was wrong. Song Yanqing suddenly hugged Xiao Jin and buried his head in her neck. He said hoarsely, "I'm fine." How could Xiao Jin believe that? It was obvious that this was not the first time he was in such a state. He was in the Rakshasa realm. Right now, his soul was connected to the other side, which was why he had such a painful expression. He was still being tortured. Xiao Jin stretched out her hand and used the array. In an instant, it was as if she had come to another world. She saw the ferocious faces of the demons, but compared to before, they now had a smug expression. And in an instant, Xiao Jin saw Song Yanqing in the Rakshasa realm. It was just a blurry shadow, like a flashback of a fragment. He turned his head. Half of his face was filled with pain, but the other half was calm. It was like an angel and a demon coexisting. It was contradictory to the extreme. It was just a fragment. Xiao Jin's eyes narrowed slightly. He had stayed in the Rakshasa realm for so long. In such a place, not only was it a matter of pain, but he would also be eroded. The Rakshasa realm could demonize spiritual trainers. How could they not think of ways to demonize Song Yanqing? Chapter 1068. I'm fine. He probably sensed that Xiao Jin was observing something, so he quickly raised his head. He looked at Xiao Jin's face, which had returned to normal, except that it was still strangely pale. His entire body was soaked in sweat, and it was so sticky that it was a little uncomfortable. Compared to usual, he looked a little fragile and beautiful. He stood up and said, "I'm sorry, I'm going to take a shower." Xiao Jin thought of Li Jiao's words again. He was in pain now. She knew about his pain. However, without the spatial array points, she could not pass through. Her fingertips were clenched tightly. Xiao Jin noticed that some things had to be sped up. She had to find the remaining 3 array points as soon as possible. She had to see what would happen when the 9 array points were combined. The things she left behind back then would not be without reason. When Song Yanqing came out of the shower again, he had already returned to normal. He did not say anything. He just hugged Xiao Jin and said, "I'm sorry, it's fine. I had a nightmare. You can go to sleep." Xiao Jin replied, "Okay." She knew, and so did he. They both knew, but if he did not say it, Xiao Jin would not ask now. She knew that Song Yanqing did not want her to keep thinking about this matter. After falling asleep again, Xiao Jin did not fall asleep much, and so did Song Yanqing. Although his breathing was steady, Xiao Jin could feel that he was not asleep. Fortunately, nothing similar happened in the second half of the night. Xiao Jin did not know if it was because she fell asleep in the second half of the night. When she opened her eyes, Song Yanqing's low and hoarse voice sounded in her ear, "Good morning." At this time, the sexy posture of a noble person like him was very seductive. Xiao Jin only shrunk her neck because now, her back was facing Song Yanqing. He hugged her and whispered in her ear. She felt a little itchy. Seeing her like this, Song Yanqing chuckled and looked at the time on his phone. "You should go back." It was 6 in the morning. Xiao Jin's flight was at 9 in the morning. They still had to go to the airport. Xiao Jin only said, yes. It was a simple matter for her to go back. She didn't need to waste any effort. She turned to look at Song Yanqing and smiled at him. Then, she got up and disappeared from the bedroom. Looking at the empty bedroom after she disappeared, Song Yanqing sighed slightly. The bed was still warm. He thought that at least Xiao Jin could come over directly in the future. Since there was a beginning, there would always be a future. It was time for him to get busy with his own matters. Xiao Jin returned to the Mu family. He simply packed his things and prepared to leave for Luohe City. Xiao Jin didn't bring anything with her because she was just next door and would probably be back in the afternoon or the next morning. After she went out, she bumped into Muzillion, who was coming downstairs. It was only 7:00 in the morning. She was slightly surprised. "You woke up so early." "I'm early." Of course, Muzillion woke up so early because he had something to do. He looked up and down at Xiao Jin and suddenly felt a little suspicious. "Did you sleep very soundly last night?" "Xiao Jin. What's wrong?" "Muzillion, why didn't you open the door when I knocked on it at 12:00? She was at Song Yanqing's place at that time. She couldn't sense it so far away. And they never looked for her in the middle of the night." She frowned slightly. "Why are you looking for me?" "It's nothing. It's fine now. You're unreliable at the critical moment." Muzillion made the accusation. Fortunately, he didn't continue to ask Xiao Jin why she didn't open the door. After all, he felt that Xiao Jin was so wicked that she would deliberately not open the door. Chapter 1069. Last night, he only wanted to borrow Xiao Jin's phone account for the game event. However, when Xiao Jin opened the door, he did not continue to knock. He thought that Xiao Jin was too lazy to open the door. However, he thought that this was a little inconceivable for a big shot who could teleport, unless the big shot was extremely lazy. He did not dare to imagine that the big shot was not at home last night. If he knew that Xiao Jin was at the Song family, this matter would be known to the whole world the next day. Xiao Jin did not care about him. She went downstairs to eat breakfast and headed out. If she took a car, she would be discovered by Xiao Fei. She used the excuse of going out to play, and Xiao Fei naturally did not ask. The airport was still very far away, so Xiao Jin found a chance to teleport over. When she reached the airport, she boarded the plane and headed to Luohe City. On the way, she sent a message to Mo Jiang, reminding him to remember to pick her up from the hotel today. Of course, it was about the 6th array point, Fan Yenyao. Mo Jiang replied with an okay. 2 hours later, the plane landed and arrived at Luohe City. Ji Mengmeng was also here now. Knowing that Xiao Jin was here, she naturally sent someone to pick her up. The burial pit was in the wilderness. After all, if it was in the city, it would have been discovered long ago. The person who picked up Xiao Jin was the driver of the spirit team. After driving for a few hours, they finally arrived at the so-called wilderness. It was basically thousands of miles away from the city and was at the edge of Luohe City. There were mountains nearby, but the mountains were not very high. They were almost equivalent to rolling hills. However, there was a large piece of wasteland. When Xiao Jin arrived, there were already many people here. The burial pit was just discovered not long ago. Probably because there were too many corpses and they had to carefully preserve them for observation, they did not do much. There was a security cordon and dozens of cars around. It was not a police car either. This place was taken over by the spirit team. Naturally, it was the spirit team's people who were guarding this place. Big Boss Xiao Ji Meng was in the crowd. She stood beside the huge pit and turned her head to see Xiao Jin. She hurried over to welcome her. There were a lot of people around, and Xiao Jin's appearance attracted a lot of attention. There were members of the spirit group from Luo River City, and there were also those from the imperial capital. Most of them did not recognize Xiao Jin, but they had heard of him. Now that he saw this fairy-like beauty, he naturally remembered Xiao Jin's identity and knew who she was. In this world, there was no other person with such a temperament. Standing in the wilderness like this, the immortal aura seemed to float as if this place was an immortal palace. It's here. When Ji Meng saw Xiao Jin, she heaved a sigh of relief. For the past few days, she had been dealing with the matter of the burial pit. She was so worried that her hair was about to turn white. Now that she saw Xiao Jin, her heart calmed down. Indeed, a big boss was a big boss. Only a big boss had the power to make people trust and calm. Xiao Jin and Ji Meng went to the burial pit together. This huge pit could be seen from afar. Now that they were close and standing beside the pit, they could feel the shock inside. There were many people at the bottom of the pit, using all kinds of tools to deal with the corpses. Perhaps they were not corpses, but piles of bones. Because of the years, some of the bones were extremely brittle. They would shatter with a slight touch, causing the ground to be covered with broken limbs and bones. It was as if they could imagine the tragic state they were in when they were alive. There were also some bones that were in a kneeling position with their hands raised. Judging from the deformed bones, they must have been in great pain before they died. Chapter 1070. Such a corpse burial pit only appeared recently. Ji Meng had a complicated expression as she loathed the person who had done such a thing. We have investigated. They are not people from the war era. They were all harmed by an array formation, but we did not find out what array formation it was. There are at least 100 corpses buried in this pit. According to our investigation, they were all starved to death when they were alive. Xiao Jin looked at the pile of bones and frowned slightly. She could see more with her eyes. When she approached the corpse burial pit, scenes from the past appeared in front of her. She could hear the wails of the bones, as well as the tragic cries of men, women, and children. Just the sound alone was enough to make one's heart tighten and scalp tingle. Towards the end, the howls gradually turned softer, as though they had lost all their strength. Gradually, there was no sign of life. They had indeed starved to death, so much so that they no longer had the strength to make a sound. Furthermore, they were not buried alive. They had been buried when they were alive. However, the array formation had restrained them, giving them sufficient space but preventing them from calling for help. Life-affirming array formation, and it was a death-affirming array formation. This proved that the person's karma was so strong that ordinary array formations could not withstand it. He had only barely survived after killing so many people. It's been a few decades. Xiao Jin turned around and asked Ji Meng. Ji Mengmeng answered, "This pit has a history of about 100 years. 100 years. Ji Mengmeng continued, "We have discovered 5 corpse burial pits across the country. The oldest has a history of thousands of years and the shortest is a few decades. The span is huge." Qiao Jin pursed his lips slightly. "Let me take a look at the map of the corpse burial pits." Since 5 had been discovered, and they were all across the country, there had to be a location. Sometimes, these locations had a pattern. Ji Mengmeng showed the map to Qiao Jin. Indeed, there were no corpse burial pits on all sides of the map. It was like a map. Qiao Jin's eyelids twitched. There should be 4 more. Just now, when she saw this diagram, she thought of the 9 scattered array points that she had seen in the memory array. It was truly a coincidence, because the locations of these burial pits did not correspond to the locations of the formation points, but rather, they were all in the same city. Mo Jiang, Yang Qiulu, and Ping Yuan, Meng Qingyu, and the others were in Nanjiang. Another dot landed in Xiangdu. Guo Julian was born in Xiangdu. Meng Qingyu and the others were actually not natives of the imperial capital. They had only moved to the imperial capital when they were young. However, according to this map, there were no burial pits in Pingyuan City. This also proved that there was still an array point in Luohe City. At least it had descended in this city. 9 array points correspond to 9 burial pits. To be honest, this didn't feel good at all. She never thought that the birth of the array point would be accompanied by a bloody storm, but the burial pit was a very cruel thing. For more. When Ji Mengmeng heard Qiao Jin's words, her scalp went numb. It was already a big deal to discover a corpse burial pit, but now Qiao Jin actually said that there were 4 more that had yet to appear. What a sensation this would cause. If the news of the discovery of such a corpse burial pit all over the country spread out, even the higher-ups would be alarmed. Qiao Jin said, "These are all things from a long time ago. It's only because of the timing that they've been accidentally exposed. If one pit was the fatal array formation, what were the other pits?" Without Qiao Jin, they couldn't see anything. Chapter 1071. Qiao Jin had to go to the scene to know. She couldn't sense the energy of the array just by looking at photos. In other words, she had to travel all over the country during this period. Qiao Jin soon let go of the speculation. It shouldn't be a problem with the array points, but just corresponding to the array points. Qiao Jin had observed the existence of Meng Qingyu and the others. They didn't bear any great sins. If they were born in such a bloody and cruel way, it was impossible for there to be no karma at all. Unless, there was a problem with the combination of the 9 array points and the corresponding 9 burial pits. The other 4 burial pits hadn't been found yet, so she couldn't see anything now. Qiao Jin had to go to the scene. He could also use this opportunity to find the remaining 3 array points. Fan Zhaoyao was in the capital. After finding her, he could ask her which city she came from. Then, Qiao Jin had to go to Luohe City. Of course, it would be best if he met her. Ji Mengmeng was still immersed in the shock of the 4 burial pits. Trembling, she made a phone call and gave the order. She asked Qiao Jin in a whisper, "Where do you think the remaining 4 burial pits are?" Qiao Jin thought about the corresponding distribution points of the 9 array points, but to be honest, they were too scattered. This country was so big that she could only guess the remaining 4 based on a few array points. After all, there were still 3 array points that had not been found. However, the appearance of the burial pit provided her with a direction to look for Pingyuan. One was in Luohe City. Qiao Jin told Ji Mengmeng about Pingyuan City and roughly circled the remaining 3 locations on the map. After circling, Qiao Jin found a problem. These 9 places were combined to form an octagonal array. There was also a center point in a city in the middle. When all the lines were connected, it was a huge array. All the connecting points of the lines were at the center point. Ji Meng was shocked when she saw the connected lines. What kind of array is this? The array was definitely not as simple as a picture. It was an array. It was a huge and complicated array formation. Origin array, it was just 2 simple words. However, Qiao Jin couldn't figure out what this array was for. Furthermore, the corpse burial pit and the formation point both pointed to the same formation, but they did not represent the same meaning. The method of the burial pit was cruel and bloody, but the 9 array points looked much gentler. This formation point was 2-sided. Thinking of this, Qiao Jin narrowed his eyes. The burial pit at the center had already appeared, but the formation point at the center had yet to appear. This city was called Qingla City. Qiao Jin seemed to have realized something. However, the 9 array points had not been completely illuminated. She guessed that going to Qingla City would be useless. She then said, "You have to find the remaining 4 burial pits." So far, a total of 5 had appeared, but there was no news about the other 4. Qiao Jin felt that there was not enough time. This array formation was no ordinary array formation. In fact, it was extremely dangerous. The array points on Imo Jiang and the others' bodies, as well as the place where the corpse was buried, all pointed to this array formation called the origin array. One was set up by her. There was another one. It was Imo Feiwan. The matter was indeed about to surface. Imo Jiang called Qiao Jin. "Hey, are you talking about Fan Zhaoyao? Her voice is really nice. She can be a voice actor for me. I don't know if she's interested." Qiao Jin. Chapter 1072. You found her. Qiao Jin had asked Imo Jiang to find Fan Zhaoyao. Imo Jiang was really fast. "I found her." Imo Jiang's tone was a little gossipy. "The person you found is quite pitiful. When I went to the hotel, she was almost bullied." TSK, Qiao Jin, she thought of the time when she was in the array point. Fan Zhaoyao was being bullied. She even saved Fan Zhaoyao at that time. Although it was fake, it still represented what would happen in reality. Fan Zhaoyao hadn't happened yet, but she was still being bullied. Sure enough, people with the array point weren't peaceful. Qiao Jin said, "Where is she now?" "In the hotel." Imo Jiang's tone was still a little doubtful. "It's fine if it was Meng Qingyu and the others in the past. They came over because they had a reason. But this Fan Zhaoyao is working in the hotel. How can I find an excuse to kidnap her? Should I tell her that she doesn't want to work and that I'll take care of her?" Qiao Jin, this was indeed true. In the past, Meng Qingyu and the others had been in an emergency and had been saved by Qiao Jin. But Fan Zhaoyao hadn't done anything yet. Fan Zhaoyao worked in the hotel. Imo Jiang was just a guest to her. Of course, there was no better way to take Fan Zhaoyao away. Qiao Jin was silent for a moment. "Then you can stay in the hotel and take the opportunity to get to know her. When the time comes, you can start from her family. Moreover, her financial situation shouldn't be very good. You can ask her if she's willing to be your assistant. You don't have many assistants now. You only have Guojulien, right?" Guojulien had inherited the inheritance. She was also a rich woman. But she was still willing to be Imo Jiang's assistant. At least staying by Imo Jiang's side gave her a sense of security. "Oh, sure." Imo Jiang also thought of this point. Speaking of Guojulien, she brought up another matter. "Do you remember the brother-in-law that Guojulien likes?" They really got married. TSK, I thought that this Hao Jiuzong was sincere to Guojulian. But now, he really got married to Guojulian's sister. Are they really married? Xiao Jin was surprised not because of other reasons, but because a prestigious family like the Hao family could still let Guozhui marry into their family. Now that she was really married, it was inconceivable. She was trapped in the time array point, so when she came out, some things had already happened. That's right. The little girl said that she didn't care. She didn't go to the wedding, but she cried like a dog beside me. My new clothes were wet from her tears, all because of a man. I advised her that there were so many spare tires around her. Why must she hang herself on a tree? There is no lack of men in this world. Xiao Jin, she sighed slightly, if they got married, then they got married. It's none of our business. It's enough that Guojulian didn't have any other thoughts. Mo Jiang asked again, when will you be back? Tomorrow. Xiao Jin pursed her lips, I want to try and see if I can find any clues here. Although the person with the array point might not be in this city, the burial pit was here. It meant that there must be one array point. She had to try her luck. After looking at the burial pit, the spirit team started to deal with the burial pit. After all, it was impossible to just leave it here. Ordinary people sometimes passed by it. After Xiao Jin looked at it, there was nothing else. Chapter 1073. First, he followed Ji Mengmeng back to the hotel in the city. The spirit group booked a hotel for Xiao Jin for tomorrow morning. Xiao Jin told Ji Mengmeng that he would go to see the other burial pits in the next few days, and Ji Mengmeng agreed to all of them. At night, when the Mu family was nowhere to be found, Xiao Fei immediately called. Of course, Xiao Jin answered the call at this time. Where are you? Xiao Fei's tone was not very good. It was so late, and Xiao Jin still hadn't come back. She had an ominous feeling. Xiao Jin said naturally, I'm in Luoha City. Xiao Fei gasped. You ran out again. You just came back, and you ran out again. He had only been missing for a month, and now Xiao Jin had left again. Xiao Fei was naturally very upset. I just have something to do. Xiao Jin explained seriously this time. There are many people with me. I'll be back tomorrow. You don't have to worry. Some things will be more troublesome if they are not solved. Fei, you have to understand. Her earnest words made Xiao Fei look like the ignorant one. Xiao Fei was jealous. You've grown up. As your mother, I can't control you anymore. Xiao Jin was speechless. After listening to Xiao Fei's tantrum for a while and confirming that Xiao Jin was indeed safe, she hung up the phone. When she called, she was having dinner with Ji Mengmeng. When Ji Mengmeng heard that her family was so concerned about Xiao Jin, she couldn't help laughing. It's good that your family is so concerned about you. Unlike them, because they were in the spirit group, there were many things that they couldn't tell their families. They couldn't go back often. Xiao Jin smiled and said, it's good. Ji Mengmeng didn't dwell on this topic, but quickly asked Xiao Jin, what do you think the burial pit represents? It's a huge formation. Xiao Jin didn't hide it from her. It's been a long time. They probably started setting it up a long time ago. It might be useful, but I don't know much. I can only be sure after all 9 burial pits are discovered. Since it was a formation, it must be pointing to something. 9 corpses. Hearing this, Ji Mengmeng gritted her teeth. How cruel and vicious is that person to do this? Even after experiencing so many things, Ji Mengmeng still felt that some array masters had done terrible things for their own selfish desires. If it weren't for the fact that there were still people in the modern world who could restrain them, he didn't dare to imagine what the lives of ordinary people would be like. Humans who possessed power were simply too terrifying. Actually, he's no longer human. Xiao Jin lowered his eyes and said, "Can he still be considered human after doing such a thing?" "You're right." All of them grew up under the red flag. As an array master, Xi Mingming's concept was still a human's concept. She had her own moral values, so naturally, she hated this kind of array master. The two of them chatted for a while. Because it was too late, Xiao Jin went to bed very early. She had to go back to the capital at least tomorrow, and then continue to go to other cities. If she was running around outside for a few days, the Mu family would be anxious again. In the next few days, Xiao Jin found various excuses to fly to the remaining 4 burial pits. She didn't know if it was because the time was not right, but even if Xi Mengmeng checked the place Xiao Jin mentioned, it would not be easy to find it in such a large city. The remaining 4 burial pits never appeared, and Xiao Jin didn't find the existence of the 7th formation point. After looking at the 5 burial pits, she had some estimates in her heart. Chapter 1074. The array formation of each burial pit was different. Pay for life, replace life, and even exchange life. And deprive of luck. Each burial pit represented a different array formation, which also meant that the array points on Mo Jiang and the others also represented different things. They were all cruel arrays that array masters were not allowed to use. This kind of karma had long exceeded a certain range. Since Mo Feihuan was still alive, he must have been protected by the Rakshasa world. So this matter was no longer a matter of array masters. Xiao Jin could conclude that the ultimate goal was the Rakshasa world. Since the Rakshasa world could break through the enchantment in her memory, they must be planning a second time. Back then, Xiao Jin used the rules to block them. Now that she had reappeared, it meant that everything had to start anew. Then the Rakshasa world could naturally make a comeback. She had been resurrected, and Song Yanqing had also appeared. In the end, the matter from 10,000 years ago had not been resolved thoroughly enough. But Xiao Jin actually did not understand why the Rakshasa world was involved with them. Or was it really only she and Song Yanqing had the ability to stop the Rakshasa world? However, she also had a hunch that this was the end. Everything would eventually come to an end. It could not go on like this. She could only let nature take its course and watch the world change. In the end, who wanted such a gorgeous and beautiful world to disappear? Even if it was not perfect. But its existence had its own meaning. Xiao Jin returned to the capital after looking at the burial pit. There were still a few clues left. The following days were much calmer. She stayed at the Mu family during the day and went to the Song family to sleep at night. In order to prevent Muzilian from disturbing her again, she told everyone at home that she went to bed very early and did not want to disturb her in the middle of the night. She especially criticized Muzilian by name. Muzilian was scolded again because of this. Muzilian, Mayar wanted to ask her for a mobile phone account, but she was so cruel. Xiao Jin was indeed a beast. Of course, they didn't know that Xiao Jin actually went to sleep in the Song family at night. She and Song Yanqing seemed to have gotten used to this kind of thing. Of course, they were simply sharing a bed together. However, the accident that Xiao Jin had discovered last time, which was when Song Yanqing had nightmares or felt pain in the middle of the night. The imperial capital was also much more peaceful. Such days finally lasted until the New Year. Chinese New Year was a special day, especially since it was the first major festival that Xiao Jin had experienced in the modern world. Early in the morning of New Year's Eve, the Song family came back to celebrate the New Year together. Xiao Fei got up early and began to decorate. Muzilian was also forced to wake up early. The cold wind was blowing outside, and he was playing games on the sofa, looking like he had nothing left to live for. Xiao Jin had nothing to do, but Mu Xiangshan came over to lead her. Come, let's go to the Ji family. Xiao Jin was a little dumbfounded. Go to the Ji family. You're not going to ask for New Year's money. Mu Xiangshan glanced at her. Forget about the previous years, but this is your first time. It's reasonable for you to go. Your grandpa Ji and the others must have already prepared it. It's a waste not to take it, right? Xiao Jin, Muzilian couldn't help but stand up and say loudly, Grandpa, I'm going too. I haven't seen Grandpa Ji in a long time. I miss him. If he was going, he would definitely get a share of the New Year's money. Mu Xiangshan glanced at him and didn't refuse. Let's go. Mu Qi immediately followed after him happily. Chapter 1075. Of course, Muzilian was happy to go to the Ji family for a red packet. When he followed Mu Xiangshan to the Ji family, Mu Xiangshan asked Xiao Jin on the way, Did the two abroad call you? Xiao Jin realized after a few seconds that Mu Xiangshan was probably referring to Ji Qiue and his wife, Chai Yueli, who were abroad. She was Xiao Jin's biological mother. Although Xiao Jin's refusal to return to the Ji family had caused a stir, the two of them had gone abroad to focus on taking care of Ji Fanjing after the will came out. They were also forced by Ji Sikai. It wouldn't be easy to come back now. Now that it was the new year, Mu Xiangshan wanted to know if they had greeted Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin shook his head. No, why would they call me? Xiao Jin didn't like those people, so it was good that they didn't call. Did they want everyone to feel uncomfortable? Humph, Mu Xiangshan sneered. He's your biological son after all. When he was born, you could hear him cry a little. Now you know, they don't even call to greet you during the new year. Xiao Jin said, I didn't greet them either. That's different. Mu Xiangshan defended Xiao Jin unconditionally. They're the ones who want to acknowledge you. If they really wanted to, they would have at least tried to please you in these aspects. But look, they're not even willing to do that. You should know what kind of people your biological parents are. Muzilian felt that his grandfather was meddling too much. He said indifferently, if they don't call, then don't call. They don't acknowledge Xiao Jin, but Grandpa Ji does. We can still keep in touch with the Ji family. Do we still need their greetings? After a pause, Muzilian added, Actually, if they want to greet you, it's fine. During the new year, they don't have to meet you, but they can give you the New Year's money. Xiao Jin, don't you think so? As soon as he finished speaking, Mu Xiangshan spat. Do you only have eyes for money? You want to eat all kinds of money. Those are Xiao Jin's parents, not yours. Why are you looking for excuses? You shameless thing. Muzilian was already used to being ridiculed by his own grandfather. He was thick-skinned and could still laugh at this moment. Xiao Jin only pursed his lips and smiled faintly, but he didn't say anything. Chai Yueli and the others were not within the scope of Xiao Jin's consideration. One less troublesome matter was one less. They were all strangers, so why should he care? When they arrived at Ji Ping An's home, they found out early in the morning that Xiao Jin was coming to pay a New Year's visit. Although Ji Ping An didn't lack people to visit, after all, his children had all left. There wasn't even a single person. His eldest brother had even sent someone to invite him to the Ji family's main residence for New Year's. Early in the morning, he was guarding the door. When she saw Xiao Jin's car from afar, she smiled widely. When she got out of the car, even if she saw an extra Muzilian, she was overjoyed. Xiao Jin and Muzilian both paid their New Year's greetings to Ji Ping An. Since it was early in the morning, Mu Xiangshan naturally decided to have lunch here, so he didn't plan to go back. During the new year, everyone wanted to be sweet. After Mu Zillion and Xiao Jin paid their respects to Ji Ping, they received a big red packet from Ji Ping. Although they didn't inform Ji Ping beforehand that Mu Zillion was coming, it was normal to prepare red packets for the younger generation. But in the end, his granddaughter was treated differently. Just looking at the thickness, Mu Zillion felt sour in his heart. No matter how much was in this kind of red packet, it was actually not as good as the usual mobile phone transfer, but it was for the sake of celebration. Chapter 1076. While Mu Xiangshan and Xiao Jin were chatting with Ji Pingon, a servant came from outside the house. "Master, eldest young master is here." Eldest young master was Ji Sikai. Ji Pingon wasn't surprised and let the servant lead him in with a smile. When Ji Sikai came in and saw Xiao Jin in a snow-white down jacket, he paused. She was sitting on the side, seemingly listening to Ji Pingon and Mu Xiangshan's conversation while rubbing her chin. She seemed a little absent-minded. When she saw Ji Sikai come in, she just naturally turned her face and didn't have any special expression. "Third Grandpa, Grandpa Mu." Ji Sikai spoke respectfully, then glanced at Xiao Jin and Mu Zillion. He continued politely, "Xiao Jin, Qilian, Happy New Year." Mu Qilian was a little overwhelmed by the favor. After all, in their eyes, Ji Sikai couldn't be considered a peer who hung out with them. He was more or less at Song Yanqing's level. Mu Zillion coughed and straightened up. "Brother Sikai, Happy New Year." Ji Sikai smiled and looked at Xiao Jin with a deep gaze. Xiao Jin opened his mouth and said, "Happy New Year." Ji Sikai seemed to have understood. As expected, he still wouldn't change his words. He didn't care about this now. He walked over and sat next to Mu Xiangshan and Ji Pingon. Ji Pingon looked at him gently. "Didn't I say I would go over tonight? Why did you still come over?" Ji Sikai said, "This is etiquette. I should be here to give you New Year's greetings." Although New Year's greetings were all on the first day of the new year, New Year's Eve was special. That was why Mu Xiangshan brought Xiao Jin to see Ji Pingon. Mu Xiangshan's expression was meaningful, but he didn't say anything. Ji Pingon sighed. "You've been quite busy recently. It's thoughtful of you to take time out to see me." Ji Sikai said, "It's natural to come and see Third Grandpa. No matter how busy I am, I have time during the new year." He had just taken over the Ji family, so he had a lot of things to deal with. When they were talking, Xiao Jin couldn't be bothered to interrupt. Mu Zillion also behaved himself, mainly because it didn't seem right to take out his phone to play games in front of the elders. Xiao Jin's phone kept vibrating. She was quite popular during the new year. There were many people who wished her a happy new year. Mo Jiang was still complaining in the group that he was too lonely during the Lunar New Year and asked Xiao Jin to come over for hot pot tonight. If it weren't for the fact that the Mu family couldn't leave, perhaps Xiao Jin would have really gone. During lunch, Ji Sikai naturally stayed behind as well. However, he didn't deliberately talk to Xiao Jin. It seemed that there was nothing to talk about between the two of them. After the meal, Xiao Jin and Mu Xiangshan were about to leave. Ji Sikai also left. As he was leaving, he suddenly said, "Grandpa Mu, can I have a word with Xiao Jin?" Mu Xiangshan looked at him meaningfully, then nodded. "Go ahead." After saying that, he scolded Mu Qi, who wanted to gossip, away. Xiao Jin stayed behind and looked at him strangely. "What's the matter?" Ji Sikai looked at Xiao Jin's calm face and curled his lips slightly. "You and Song Yanqing are both spiritualists, right?" Xiao Jin wasn't surprised to hear him mention this topic. Back then, she had seen Ji Sikai with the array masters of the spirit group. Ji Sikai wasn't a spiritualist, but it didn't mean that he didn't know about spiritualists. After all, even the Song family knew. However, the problem was that he said that Song Yanqing was one too. Chapter 1077. Qiao Jin looked at him steadily. She didn't seem to be on guard. Instead, she asked softly, "So?" Ji Sikai's gaze was somewhat cold. "At that time, someone by my side told me that Song Yanqing wouldn't live for long. You were the one who saved him." His tone was firm. Qiao Jin only said, "What are you trying to say?" Ji Sikai was just an ordinary person, but he knew something that even a spiritual reader didn't know. His influence was really big. "Don't worry. I don't have any ulterior motives toward you and Song Yanqing." He smiled, then thought of something and admitted frankly, "Of course, at that time, I did want to wait for Song Yanqing to die and the Song family to fall into chaos. It was a bit of a pity to sit back and reap the benefits." He licked the corner of his lips with the tip of his tongue and looked at Qiao Jin. "Your appearance is too coincidental. I've checked your information. Even if you suddenly awakened, a person's personality wouldn't change so much." He was already faintly probing for something. Qiao Jin didn't panic like when his secret was exposed. He just said calmly, "This has nothing to do with you. If you have any ulterior motives, I won't let you go." She wouldn't let an existence that was dangerous to her exist. "I said, I don't have any ulterior motives toward you. Whether you're Qiao Jin or not, it doesn't matter to me." Ji Sikai shrugged. "I'm clear about the world of spiritual readers. Even if I know a little, I'm not one of them. I'm just curious about you. Looking at you now, I've already gotten some answers to some of my questions." He looked at Qiao Jin and seemed to sigh faintly. "What a pity." Qiao Jin frowned slightly. He didn't seem to want to continue discussing with Qiao Jin. In the end, he said, "Goodbye." The last sentence seemed to be explaining something. He walked around Qiao Jin, his back tall and straight. Qiao Jin only looked at this person's back and narrowed his eyes slightly. In the end, he returned to Mu Xiangshan's side. Mu Xiangshan asked, "What did he say to you?" Qiao Jin said, "I don't really understand." Mu Xiangshan suddenly sighed, "What a sin." "Qiao Jin, what did that mean?" Muzilian faintly sensed something. When he saw Mu Xiangshan's expression, his eyes widened. "Holy shit, Grandpa, can't be." "Qiao Jin, can't be what?" Mu Qi looked at Qiao Jin with a pained expression. "What a sin." "Qiao Jin," Mu Xiangshan slapped the back of Mu Qilian's head. "Do you know what I'm talking about? Why do I have such a stupid grandson?" He cursed as he got into the car. "Mu Qilian, then why don't you tell me your true intentions?" Muzilian was very embarrassed to be hit for no reason. He put his hands behind his back. "Hurry up and get in the car. By the way, how much did you get from Grandpa Ji?" "Qiao Jin, I'm not telling you." Muzilian, Mu Xiangshan continued, "Hurry up and get in the car. I have a lot of friends. I can't waste any time this afternoon." "Qiao Jin." Muzilian. "Holy shit, Grandpa is still the best. He directly brought me to get red packets? He probably didn't bring Big Brother and Second Brother to hide his true intentions." For a moment, Muzilian was over the moon. Chapter 1078. Sure enough, Mu Xiangshan didn't just bring them out to visit the Ji family. He also visited a bunch of old friends. Since he brought 2 children to visit, the other party was naturally polite. When they saw Xiao Jin, they were all smiles. After all, Xiao Jin was now Song Yanqing's girlfriend. This was something that the entire capital knew. Mu Xiangshan brought his granddaughter over because he thought highly of them. This was a great honor, so he definitely gave them enough red packets. Some people felt that the cash was too little, so the red packets given to Xiao Jin were all filled with bank cards. Even Mu Qilian was basking in the limelight. Muzillion. Heaven didn't let down those who worked hard. He didn't expect that one day, he would really become rich because of Xiao Jin. There was hope for his new sports car. Of course, Xiao Jin and Mu Xiangshan didn't know what Muzillion was thinking. However, just by looking at his uncontrollable smile after receiving the red packets, they knew how happy he was. When it was almost night time, Song Yanqing called Xiao Jin and told her that they were coming over. Only then did Mu Xiangshan bring Xiao Jin and the others back. On the way back, Muzillion couldn't help but touch the pile of red packets in his pocket. I'm rich, I'm rich. There were several bank cards among them. If he was willing to use bank cards, how could the amount inside be small? Fortunately, his coat had pockets. Otherwise, he wouldn't know where to put the red packets. Look at you. Mu Xiangshan felt that they were all members of the Mu family. Why was Muzillion so useless? Muzillion didn't reply. All his thoughts were on the red packets. When they arrived at the Mu family's house, Xiao Jin saw that Song Yanqing and the others were already there. Because they had already told her that they were outside, Song Yanqing didn't call to ask where she was. In the living room, Xiao Fei's laughter could almost be heard by the entire villa. When she entered, she was surprised to see the whole family gathered together. They're back. Jean and the others are back. Hurry up and call for help. In the living room, Mu Jinming, Mu Qiji, Mizuchu, and Xiao Fei were all present. On the Song family side, there were naturally 4 members of the Song family, Song Yanqing and his sister, as well as the Song couple. When Song Yanqing's mother saw Xiao Jin, she was so happy that she didn't even blink. She looked at Xiao Jin with a smile and said, "Long time no see, Jin." Xiao Jin also showed a rare smile and looked at them with a smile. "Hello, everyone." Song Yanqing sat to the side and looked at her with a gentle smile. Their family was dressed in a uniform today. Other than Mama Song and Song Suyu, who were wearing red coats, Song Shireen and Song Yanqing were all dressed in black. They looked especially formal. Uncle Mu. Grandpa Mu. Everyone greeted each other, and for a moment, the Mu family became more lively. After Muzillion greeted everyone, he jumped in front of Mizuchu and couldn't help but say, "Guess how many red packets I got today?" Of course, he still cared about his dignity. When he used the microphone, Mizuchu was the only one who heard it. "Mizuchu," he looked at Muzillion with an indescribable expression. "When I texted you at noon, you told me that you were doing something important." Although he knew that Muzillion had run away with Xiao Jin and Mu Xiangshan, he knew what Muzillion was doing. "That's something important." As the two of them muttered to each other, the living room became lively. The Song family's attention was all on Xiao Jin, so of course, they pulled Xiao Jin to talk with them. Chapter 1079. When everyone got together during the new year, it was nothing more than some casual topics. Of course, Mama Song still asked about some topics that she was especially concerned about. For example, how did Xiao Jin and Song Yanqing develop feelings for each other over time? She remembered that Song Yanqing and Xiao Jin were still friends back then. She didn't expect them to suddenly be enlightened. This was too surprising. "It's just that, we naturally got together." Seeing Xiao Jin's hesitant answer, Song Yanqing reached out to hold Xiao Jin's hand and smiled. I confessed first because I felt that the opportunity was right. Why not give it a try? Fortunately, she agreed. Xiao Jin glanced at Song Yanqing. This wasn't what he said back then. It was completely because Xiao Fei casually mentioned it that Xiao Jin went to talk to Song Yanqing and let him say what he wanted to say next. Is that so? Everyone believed that two people develop feelings for each other over time, but Muzilian was still a little shocked. He complained to his brother. In the beginning, Xiao Jin actually didn't like brother Yanqing's face. Is she crazy? Musichu, I think you're the crazy one. To be able to get unanimous approval from the same gender, one could see how attractive Song Yanqing's face was. It was indeed surprising that Xiao Jin didn't like it at first. But looking at Xiao Jin, it wasn't surprising either. Fortunately, in the entire family, no one else would have such shameless thoughts except for Muzilian. Because it involved some unusual things between the two of them, the Song family didn't ask much. It was fine as long as everyone knew. Xiao Fei looked at the joyous scene in front of her. Especially since her daughter and son's marriage seemed to have a direction, she was overjoyed. She sighed and said, "It's the new year today. I originally planned to cook a meal myself." When she said this, Mu Xiangshan and Mu Zhenming's bodies stiffened. Muzilian was straightforward. "Mom, I can understand that you're happy, but there's no need to cook." Xiao Fei glared at Muzilian. If the Song family wasn't here, she would definitely make Muzilian bleed on the spot. It was rare that Musichu didn't scold Muzilian for being insensible. Instead, he patted Muzilian's shoulder. There were some things that didn't need to be said. Mu Qilian's actions were too impulsive. No wonder he got beaten up. Mu Qilian's words made everyone laugh. Xiao Fei was a little embarrassed. Mama Song said, "Actually, I had the same idea when I came here. Why don't you come to my house tomorrow on the first day of the new year?" Song Shireen was speechless. His twisted expression allowed others to see what he was thinking at that time. Sometimes, it was necessary to say some polite words. Even Song Yanqing's smile was a little stiff. Song Suyu's eyebrows twitched and he said, "Mom, forget it. You're a slow cook after all. How long will it take for our whole family to finish cooking? Even if you don't consider the new year, you have to consider the time." Yes, Suyu's right. Mother Song was still smiling. "How about this? Come over another day when you have time. I'll prepare in advance." Song Suyu was speechless. It didn't matter. It was better than her cooking on the spot tomorrow. Xiao Fei couldn't help but say, "I'll help you then. Let the children have a taste of our love meal." Mother Song held her hand excitedly. "Okay." Everyone was speechless. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.